Good afternoon. My name is Juliet English, and you are live with us this afternoon with Michelle Zahir. We also have Michaela Silsby in with us from Spilling the Tea on Autism and ADHD. And we are having this very special live broadcast today called The Power of Many, because we're talking about this legal challenge in respect of the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act, and how you can get involved, also helping you understand what it's all about. So before we go any further, I just want to see if I can share this fundraiser, if it's got to. There you go. Okay, so can we see the fundraiser?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so Michelle, I'm going to ask you to speak about it a bit more, because I'm going to probably trip over my words.
Right. So, for those of us who've been following what is now the Fix the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act page, when it was previously Stop the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, you'll have known that for the entire duration of the bill's existence, from the 17th of December 2024 until it got royal assent April 2026, we were actively campaigning against some parts of this bill which will override parental rights. Now, parents know their children best. It's been long established that it's the parent who decides where their child goes to for education, what education they have. It's absolutely always the child's right to education. That's fundamental. But it's the parent who chooses the school, who chooses to home educate, and acts fundamentally in the child's best interest. And that's been long established. As long as you're not providing harm, causing harm to your child, you are a parent doing your best as a parent. It's accepted you're acting in your child's best interest. This changes that position. So this enables, in certain circumstances, for the local authority to decide, no, we think it's in the best interest for your child to attend a school. And there is no appeal right. There's no sort of mechanism for you to go, excuse me, I'm the parent, my child's in crisis, and I actually want to educate my child in this way instead. So this is a fundamental shift of family life. We believe they've gone too far. They've gone beyond what the Human Rights Act allows them to do, and they're now interfering in your family life, in child's rights, in parental rights, in kinship carers, in carers' rights. So we think this needs to be challenged. Unfortunately, governments have unlimited resources of money because they have the taxpayers' funds. And legal challenges are not cheap. We tried all the mechanisms in the time. We wrote to MPs, we campaigned, we protested, we did petitions. So we tried every mechanism open to us before it became an act to try and fix it. It became an act. So we're now at the point of, to try and fix it, we're needing to turn to the courts. And legal challenges are expensive, unfortunately. So this is where we're at. It's a human rights-based challenge. The letter before claim has already been submitted. So we've got quite far, but we need to have the money to be able to continue the legal challenge and be able to take it as far as it needs to go to ensure that the decisions can be made to test whether the courts also agree that actually this is interfering in private and family life and has gone too far, or whether actually, no, it's okay for the state to do that. I know most people I speak to who are parents don't agree that it's okay. And in fact, I speak to many parents where the local authority have made poor decisions about their child's education. So they don't seem to be the right person. They haven't demonstrated that they are the right person to do that. And therefore, the reality is we need to get to about 250,000, but we don't need 250,000 right now. But right now, to feel comfortable with a legal challenge, we want to be around 50,000. But if we can get to 40,000, we're at a point where we're okay, but 50,000 would give us a buffer in case any sort of curveballs come in the early stages of the legal challenge.
Okay, and Michelle, the person who's leading this case her name is Sarah, and she's going to be with us a bit later on to talk about things. But perhaps you can just explain why. Why is it a specific person that needs to lead this judicial review?
Yeah, because the way, unfortunately, you can't just academically challenge this. So you couldn't just go and challenge a piece of law, because we don't allow that. You have to have what's called standing. Now, that might be you as an individual, your family would be directly impacted. Um, you may have standing. It may be you as an organization would be impacted in a certain way, but the courts will ultimately decide who has standing. But you have to be more than a nosy neighbor. So you can't just go, look, this is bad law, I want to challenge it, because the courts will just say, on what grounds? You have no standing. So this is why you have to have the right sort of person to be the lead claimant, so that you can then get it before the courts in the first place. Because without the right person or the right organisation, you'll fail at the first hurdle, because you haven't got standing to bring the claim, even if everyone goes, oh, we think that looks bad. It's to stop just the courts getting backlogged constantly by someone who might be rich, who could just keep challenging everything they weren't happy with. So therefore, you do have to have a standing against the specific thing you're challenging.
And I just want to say, if you do want to donate to this cause, and this is partly why we're doing this, is to encourage you, please use this. You can use this QR code, and I will make sure the link is also underneath the live streams. At some point I will get to it and make sure that you can see that. So we want to actually watch this grow today, hopefully, and we want to encourage you to share it. And we're also going to be talking about ways that you can help to raise funds for this. It doesn't have to all be on you. We're not expecting you personally to donate huge sums of money, but we want to suggest holding fundraising events in your area. And we are going to talk a little bit about that as well. So I'm just going to stop the share there, right? And get back in here.
So there's lots of purposes. So the key purpose, if you can donate today, fantastic. Spread awareness. Let us know your stories. If you actually read through the Crowd Justice page, it identifies some people. You can go to Michael Charles's page. We're actively looking for some additional witnesses at the moment to help with this case. If your family meets those criteria, please reach out, because this is one, we need the funds so that we can take the legal challenge as far as it needs to go. Two, we need the witnesses. We know you exist because we're hearing the stories on a daily basis about how you've been failed and about how you've been ignored, or how the local authority has made the wrong decision in your child's case. So it's about awareness as well. And the last bit is obviously get a group of you together, fundraise, go and car wash, bake sales. There was a 11-year-old who baked some cakes and sold them. And £11, that £11 makes a big difference, because every single pound is just going to ensuring that we have a robust legal team, robust legal arguments. There's lots of really, really complicated constitutional law principles that have had to be looked up. The old law books dusted off to look at these really old principles, because we're going right back to the fact of saying, well, yes, Parliament is sovereign, and yes, you can make these acts, but hang on, have you gone beyond what your rights are over us? Because yes, we voted you in, but is this beyond what, as a democratic society, we would expect you as lawmakers to do? And so it's a very complex legal challenge, which is part of the reason it's so expensive. But to put it into context, if people look up the case for the proroguing of Parliament around Brexit, that went into millions for that particular case. So if you want to look into the context, like, oh, 33,000 sounds a large amount, 250,000 sounds a large amount. It's unfortunately complex legal stuff is expensive. And this isn't a challenge you can do without a really, really good set of legal brains to work on it. So that's unfortunately why it ends up being so much. And on that bit, should we maybe...
I just want to quickly go back to what you said about needing other witnesses, just going back to this here. Who are we looking for? It talks about, we particularly seek to hear from families who may be affected, including parents wishing to withdraw a child from school placement, but concerned this may be restricted, parents who have experienced Section 47 investigations that were later dropped, families where local authorities have overridden parental decisions despite education being suitable, and parents of children in special schools concerned about future restrictions on choice. Your experiences may help provide the evidence needed to properly test this law. So that's what we're talking about there. Okay.
And should we lead on then so that people sort of understand a bit more with, we've got a video note from Michael Charles.
Yes, just hang on. I was just trying to find my way back to you, back to us. So let me get that video ready. So we have a video. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about how Michael Charles is involved? Many people are familiar with Michael.
Yeah. Well, Michael Charles has given so much time off his own back before now. Michael Charles surprised me by attending our first protest. We were fully aware of him in the next protest. He's spoken out about the implication for parents and the implication for children. And he, over 30 years experience in this field, he knows what the realities are of parents battling for the right education for their child. So he's in it from the heart as well as from the professional perspective. The next side of it is when someone decides they want to take a legal challenge, they have to contact a variety of solicitors. So it wasn't Michael Charles who chose to do this legal challenge. It wasn't up to him. The lead claimant, Sarah, had spoken to a variety of solicitors. Sarah, in the end, decided, and it's mutual because there are reasons why solicitors sometimes can't take cases on, but Sarah, in the end, decided Sinclair Law, Michael Charles's firm, seemed to be the best fit for this particular legal challenge. So she then formally instructed him, once he confirmed that yes, his law firm can take it on, they've got the capacity, she formally instructed him. So then the legal relationship started. And then obviously then it's Michael Charles's role to get the appropriate advice, do the relevant research, feedback, and then continue to take ongoing instructions from Sarah and the other claimants, because it's not just Sarah who's the only claimant, but there is always needs to be a lead claimant on the tin. So there are other claimants who, for whatever reasons, their names being public is not appropriate at this particular moment in time, which can include family circumstances and things like that, because we're talking about very sensitive family and children issues here. Whereas Sarah's from an organisation, so it's quite normal for an organisation to be very public.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share this video from Michael. So just bear with me. Let's hope this will work. Can you see the video?
Michelle, I can see it. I'm just
okay, good. Okay, I'm just going to mute.
Hello, and thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to what I have to say here today. Many of you will know that over recent months I've been working on a proposed judicial review challenging certain provisions of the Children Wellbeing in Schools Act of 2026. And this is not a political campaign, okay? It's a legal challenge, and ultimately it'll be for the High Court to decide whether the legislation is compatible with the Human Rights Act and other legal principles. The government has now responded to the letter before claim that I drafted, and as you would expect, it strongly disagrees with the challenge and has instructed experienced public law lawyers to defend it. That's entirely proper, let's be honest. I've now had an opportunity to consider those responses with David Lawson, who is acting as barrister in the case, and he believes there are properly arguable grounds that deserve to be considered by the court. And I'm also grateful to others, including a KC who has indicated a willingness to assist if this case progresses. Our concern is not with the objective of protecting children. Everyone wants children to be safe. The legal question is whether some of the mechanisms chosen by Parliament are compatible with the Convention rights, including parental autonomy, family life, equality and proportionality. Those are matters which only a court can ultimately determine. The government says that the challenge is premature and raises a number of other legal arguments. We disagree with several of those arguments, and we're now working to finalise the grounds of claim before deciding the next procedural steps. One of the challenges in bringing public interest litigation is that it is expensive. The government has the benefit of significant legal resources, and we don't. Everything that has been achieved so far has been only possible because members of the public have been willing to support this case through crowdfunding. If proceedings are issued, Every contribution will go towards funding the legal work necessary to present the strongest possible case to the court. And whether you are able to contribute financially or simply help by sharing information about the case, your support is genuinely appreciated. And whatever the outcome, I believe these issues deserve careful judicial consideration. And the courts exist, let's be honest, to determine difficult questions like this about the limits of state power and the protection of individual rights. That is exactly what this case seeks to do. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to everyone who supported the case so far. It is so appreciated.
Okay, so that was Michael Charles. Let me get myself back on screen, sharing about this challenge. And we are hoping you might be able to join us later on to answer some questions. So anyway, we want to welcome Michaela, who's joined us. So Michaela, you started up, is it a Facebook page as such that where you mainly exist? You're muted still, so yeah. If you're on a phone, it's an awful pain. You've got to click on the screen to get your things. Now your camera's gone. Just give a minute to find the controls. I'm not a fan of Zoom on the phone because you've got to actually put your finger on the screen and then wait for the mute and the unmute. I'll do this and see if that helps.
There we go.
Good. Anyway, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So would you mind, so I was asking, do you mainly exist on Facebook, on your Facebook page, or do you have a website as well?
Yeah, so I mainly I started out on Facebook mainly because that was the one place where I sort of gravitated to the most. But I am on Instagram, and I'm just trying to start up kind of YouTube in a way of being able to bring maybe some parents or some other advocates on to be able to set up somewhere where we can talk in depth, really, rather than kind of me just posting and going through the comment section and kind of communicating that way. But yeah, I mean, Facebook has been the kind of biggest platform really that I've been able to get the most reach onto, to be able to reach as many people as we can. And having met so many different advocates and organisations on there, it's been amazing really to see. I mean, I thought I was on my own at the start, and then obviously that's just kind of escalated massively, and realise, wow, there are so many parents who are feeling the same way as what I do.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm actually just trying to check that our YouTube stream is working. Anyway,
The YouTube stream is working. I just checked.
It is. Okay, yeah, because I can't find it at the moment. I'm not actually an expert at this, by the way. I have to relearn every single time I do it. So, Michaela, would you mind sharing with us a little bit, some of your story and why you feel so strongly that you need to be doing more out there?
Yeah, so I mean, I know that there are so many parents, talking about this kind of, the general conversation at the moment seems to be about kind of attendance, children with additional needs, and the fact that kind of education is so not geared up to support children with additional needs, with SEND needs, and any child with kind of any disability really just doesn't seem to fit that box that they need to fit into to be able to thrive in a mainstream. And we're always told that more attendance is the answer. And, if they can just get through the school gate, then everything else will just fall into place. But, for so many families and so many children, that just isn't the reality. And for some children, school is, somewhere that they do thrive, and those children obviously are doing really well, and that's great. But for so many children, I mean, I don't even know the figures off of the top of my head, but thousands of children. It is a place that causes overwhelming anxiety, and there's a lot of bullying that goes on. There's the trauma, there's exclusions, there's unmet needs, and there's so much fear for these children. And they're treated like they are just a number, and a percentage in school. And we're often told as parents that to improve the attendance, we have to just keep trying to cram them back in every day. And obviously that then causes the trauma that so many children have now gained from this. But they never seem to really ask why this is happening. You know, it's always, oh, the parents, it's the parents, and it's always pushed back onto parents. And you know, none of us as parents wake up and decide in the morning that fighting for an education will be easier than just sending our kids to school. And we don't choose, you know, this life of endless meetings and assessments and having to file complaints and tribunal hearings. And I mean, the amount of sleepless nights so many of us have had as we, you know, watched our children lose themselves, you know, because our children need us to carry on fighting for them. Because, you know, when my children lost sleep, they were terrified to go into school, stopped eating, became physically unwell, you know, just at the thought of going into school. And I just think so often it's pushed back as it's a parenting problem. And actually, I think there's so much more to the system that's gone wrong, or what's not working within the system, that these children are actually trying to tell us, you know, actually, it's not me. But, you know, it's parents know their children. We know when our children are having us on. We know when our children genuinely can't get through the school gates. And I do think that, you know, we recognise those tiny changes before anyone else notices in our own children, and we see what happens at home. We see how it affects them day after day, the exhaustion of masking and the hours that it takes for our children to recover just from surviving a day at school. And we know what the trauma is doing to them because we live with them. And I just feel like attendance to school has been valued and ranked above absolutely everything at the moment, and everything else has just kind of fallen to the wayside. And you know, it shouldn't be a measure of a child's success or parental success. And you know, overwhelmingly the majority of parents that I've spoken with are not trying to avoid education, but they are trying to find an education that works for their children. And that, I think, is it's just the world of difference. You know, we're not refusing education, we're refusing harm. And you know, children have a legal right to education, but they don't have a legal duty to fit into a system that doesn't meet their needs. And you know, and education is so much more, isn't it, than just going into a building. It's learning, it's growing, it's feeling safe with adults around you, and feeling confident enough to engage with these adults, and finding out what you're good at, what are your strengths, and becoming who you are supposed to be. And none of that happens if your child is, you know, in survival mode the whole entire day. And
Yeah.
I just, you know, it really kind of broke me realizing how many, I think, children are going through that.
I think the thing is that it feels to me like it's an epidemic.
Yeah.
It's you know, it is almost an epidemic. And you know, I know we're all very fond of saying, you know, back in my day, but I'm sure I remember school as being a kinder, happier place. Obviously, I also went to school in a different country and we started later, but I do feel there's a lot that they are just ignoring in terms of where children are developmentally, in what their expectations are. And it's putting children under a lot of pressure. Children are feeling like they have to fit into something, and actually they're often just not emotionally, mentally, developmentally ready for that environment yet. And you know, so even just the age that they sort of meant to start school at, to me, is already shows a huge ignorance of what is appropriate for children aged 5. You know, it's just so out of whack, and it's out of whack with other countries as well, who are recognizing this and managing perfectly fine and producing perfectly competent adults. So yeah, I think that for me, it's if we could see the system become a kinder and a happier place for children, because currently it sometimes just feels to me it's not actually about the children at all.
Yeah. And I do feel like, I mean, we've often had lots of conversations where we've kind of said, between like me and there's a few of kind of ladies I meet with kind of every few weeks, and we often say the same thing. You know, when we was at school kind of in the 90s, like there wasn't, you know, it wasn't perfect, but our teachers had kind of flexibility enough to kind of say, okay, you're struggling with this, let's just find you something else that you kind of, something that you enjoy, something that you feel you're good at. And the teacher would just give you another task. And by doing little things like that, it meant that that child who sat in the classroom and felt like, oh my goodness, I can't cope with this, was just given a slightly different task, may have been off kilter for a little bit because, that's not what they're doing that day. But it didn't matter because the teacher was in control, and the teacher was like, could see, that this child just needed 5 minutes perhaps out on the playground to just stretch their legs and have that. And we were allowed to do that, and it wasn't this, oh, mum and dad had to come in and get permission and we didn't have to ask the Senko. It was just the teacher could see that, that was what was happening and that's what needed to happen. And I feel like we've lost a lot of that because a lot of teachers are obviously bound to what they are allowed to teach. And the curriculum is so very kind of narrow.
And where they have to get the children to.
Yes, it's
regardless of whether they can cope or not. I sort of feel a bit like, I know that there are some children out there that absolutely need the system because that is like a safe space. For some children, that certainly is true. But I think to a large extent, what we're seeing is it's not children who don't have parents who care.
Yeah.
These are children who have the support at home and have their parents trying to put everything in place and trying to facilitate education for their children. But it's something is still very, very wrong within that system, that it's actually still continuing to cause harm. And I think, that's maybe going a little bit off our little remit, but this is the issue with this act, the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act, is it still continues to ignore that and close the door, close the options that exist for parents, that were ways where a parent could help their child. If it meant home education, then that was what the parent could do. But some of those little doors and windows they're looking to close them. Those escapes, options for escape.
Yeah.
We
found. With my eldest, if I hadn't have had the option to remove her when I did, I often say I'm not sure if she would still be here at all, because she'd had so much harm and so much trauma, that it, if I hadn't have had the right to remove her, if we'd have had to have gone to a meeting and to get permission and, all of those things that are in this new act, I genuinely don't know if she would still be here, because she was on the verge and, she'd been in and out for such a long time and she kept trying and she was adamant, she wanted to be at school, she wanted it to work, but they just couldn't make that happen. And, and by the time we said, look, I had to put my foot down and say to her, look, this is damaging you, we can't let any more happen. And then I think she took a step back and she saw the situation for what had really happened, and we kind of sat down and spoke. And I think then she kind of thought, that's not normal for that to happen to people when they go to school. And I think she started realizing herself that actually she wasn't okay. But like I say, if we hadn't have had that right, I don't know where we would be today. I think we would be in a completely different place today. And that scares me, to think that parents might not have that right, to be able to say, my child is damaged by this system and my child is traumatized. And it just pains me, and it scares me to think of how many children will be continually, I guess, forced against their will to have to try and cope in a way that's really not meeting their needs.
And this is why this legal challenge is so important, because it could change those aspects of the act that close those doors for young people. And I'm happy to say that even in the time we've been talking, I've seen it go up by about, I should have taken a baseline number, shouldn't I? But it's up to £33,576 now. So I would love to see us today reach for 40,000 is what I'd love to see us reach just today. And then, but to keep going as well, because it's very important to share this campaign in your networks with anyone, particularly people for whom this hits home. So Michaela,
And Michaela's story isn't isolated. You know, we hear this
exactly,
from many parents.
all
I
the
just wanted
time.
to check, is there, obviously we really want to hear your poem. It is an amazing poem. I know we've ended up doing a conversation, but are there any other points in your sort of speech and what you prepared that you want to say, or do you
To
want to,
say,
or is it completely different and you can just take the floor?
Well, I guess the last thing really is that, you know, I just wanted to get out there was that every child deserves an education, but children also deserve dignity, safety, and the opportunity to learn without having to sacrifice their mental well-being. Like, please.
yes, and 100%, you know, and every child needs to be respected for the person that they are, and having the same rights as everybody else. So you do have a poem, Michaela. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, so I think I did this right at the start, Michelle, wasn't it? When we
Yeah, very, very near that. I think we were around the second reading, so it was around springtime, around about March 2025, I think it was, somewhere around there.
Okay, so this is Say No to the Children's Wellbeing Act. Say no. They call it a Children's Wellbeing Act, a white paper dressed in soft words, talking of support, safety, welfare. But if you listen close, it's a Trojan horse. They say, we will leave no child behind, but who gives them the power to decide when your child is behind or when your home becomes a suspect? Who gives them the right to walk into your space, to question your choices, to demand your educational plan, to judge your home, your methods, and your love? They talk of registers, of attendance orders, of state-approved standards, of oversight, of assessments, of suitable education defined by bureaucrats, not by parents who know their children's hearts. They propose handheld data, identifiers, monitoring across agencies. Your child becomes a file, not a life. They want to shift decision-making from the hearts of mothers and fathers to local authority desks. They want the power to say, no, this home is not suitable. They want to force a child to school against a parent's judgment, to intrude, to inspect, and to insist. They brand home education a risk unless you file the paperwork, comply with the frameworks, prove your plan in advance, let them in, account for every website, every tutor, report on every group and every class. Do this or risk fines and intervention. They want to criminalise non-compliance, they want to penalise difference, and they want to make the home often the safest place, a place of suspicion, a place of compliance, a place where loving parents fear to breathe. Because once the state claims the right to decide what's suitable for every child, no child is safe from standardisation. No parent is safe from scrutiny. The diversity of education, the freedom to follow a child's calling, the right to reject mass schooling, all at risk. We are told this is for the children, yet the fiercest threat is to the children's reform is the freedom to learn, to grow at their pace, and to be outside the uniform, the timetable, the mould, to have a parent to trust, not a state inspection. We are told this fills in gaps, but the gaps are created by underfunded services, by strained social care, by systemic neglect. You don't cure neglect with control, you heal with resources, trust, and support. So we must say no. No to this white paper, not this overreach, not this state intrusion into family life. Leave our children and our parents' rights alone. Let love, not law, guide child development. Let families decide in trust, not fear. Let parents be the stewards, not governments, the overlords. Let children live as people and not programs. We must stand, resist, demand if you must, and we must change the law. Change it to support, not to seize. Change it to resource, not to regulate. Change it to uplift and not intrude. But until then, we must say no to this act. Say yes to freedom, yes to parental rights, and yes to children's dignity. Our children's lives are ours, not yours to decide. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michaela. And just to say, I did actually have your Facebook page here. So this is where you can find Michaela.
Yeah.
And if you want to contact her about anything, you can get hold of her through her page. So thank you so much for joining us today, Michaela. It's been really, really, really touching to hear, you know, your story, and you're definitely not alone. I was talking to somebody yesterday who said she had to pull her child out of school because if she hadn't, something very severe might have happened, and she just wished she'd thought about it earlier. And I think many parents feel like that, if they could have prevented some of that damage. But this is why we need to normalize home education as well, as not to be seen as a negative thing, because sometimes it is a sanctuary and a safety net for families. So we are waiting to be joined by Sarah, who is the what do you call her, the
claimant,
case owner, or the claimant in this case. And I am checking the crowd justice page regularly. I did promise to put a link in, didn't I? Let me just go and put that in. And quite a few people have commented in YouTube that they've donated, which is great. So I'm just going to pop that link in there. And this looks like Sarah joining us now. And Michaela, of course, you're welcome to hang around and join the conversation, or slip out quietly whenever you're ready. So we've got Sarah about to come in, and then we will talk a bit about the case. I need to pop this link in somewhere else too. Okay, but yeah, so we are really hoping to see that amount climb up today, because it kind of plateaued a bit. Initially, it had a lot of momentum and lots of people gave, but it has slowed down a bit. And just to say that actually there are a lot of us, and there are a lot of families affected, you know, just so many. And if each family could either raise some funds to donate or pop £5 in, by no means do we want anyone to donate who is unable to. This should never be instead of your putting a meal on the table. But if you're able to, instead of buying your Starbucks coffee, you know, pop £5 in the fundraiser, and there's enough of us that we could reach our top target if everyone donated. So please, 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 just speak to others about this and encourage them to donate. I'm just going to pop the link in there as well. So Sarah, can you hear us? If you can hear us, you can unmute. Maybe we can see you. We're just waiting for her to join us. We've also going to have some stories from different people today. We will have Randall Hardy joining us a bit later to talk a bit about the direction of travel of you know, legally, politically, what we've seen happening over the coming year, over the past decades, really. Yeah, so Sarah, I hope you can hear us.
It's not letting her unmute. Are we able to override the settings?
That's very odd. Let me just check as well. Should be able to unmute themselves, but I've sent her.
Right. It's showing you as unmuted now, Sarah. Do you want to?
Yes, there she is. She's unmuted now. I don't know if you're wanting your camera on or off, but you can just let us know. So Sarah, who's joining us now, she's unmuted again. So okay, I'm sure Michelle is just having a little background chat.
Yeah, I'm just
with
messaging
Sarah just to find out what's happening there. And I'm going to look at I'm going to keep looking at this crowdfunder, and I'd like to actually see it go up every time I refresh the page. That's what I would really like. And as I said, it doesn't need to be loads. And actually, this will probably be going on for a few months. So you could also just quietly commit to putting in something every month as well. So that it's not just a one-off, that as long as it's running, to contribute to it. Oh, okay, we've lost her there. So hopefully she'll be back. And yeah, so today we are talking about this legal challenge, and I will just share it again. Let me do a screen share again to remind people what we hear about. And so this is the legal challenge to the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act, which is being, Sarah is the claimant in this challenge, and she's being supported by solicitors like Michael Charles of Sinclair Law to challenge the bits of the bill that are about reducing rights to family life. And I'm not sure if you know what those rights are, but for me, one of the big ones is the right to privacy in your family life, is that children have a right to privacy and have a right to have an education that works for them as well. So if you go and read this, there's the whole explanation of what it's all about, and why we need to raise these funds. It's not just about education, it's about what happens inside the private family sphere, where families should have the right to have those decisions, to be able to make decisions for their children. So I just want to know how Sarah's getting on there. It asks the questions like, is it proportionate for the state to interfere in family life in this way, where no harm has been established and education is accepted to be suitable? I know of somebody as well that's really struggling with her local authority, where she is providing a suitable education, but they keep asking more and more all the time and not content with what she's sharing. So this is where we are at the moment with the crowdfunder, £33,576. And I want to see that go up every time I refresh, but I'm refreshing now. Oh, no change. So please, we need to see that number move up. So please encourage others to share with us. So Sarah, are you able to hear us? I think Sarah might be having, okay, let me just ask about the video as well. Sorry, just does it give me an opportunity? Okay, so she's having some issues to get her video turned on, which is unusual. Doesn't normally happen.
Are you able to answer, Sarah? Because it's showing us on. Oh no, you're trying to speak and we can't hear you. Okay.
Something that you sometimes need to check on your Zoom account whether you link to the correct camera and the correct microphone and speakers and that kind of thing. So you might want to just check your video and audio settings to see if you are using the correct, if it's using the correct microphone and that kind of thing. One of the joys of this virtual stuff is that sometimes, as Michelle had a problem earlier when she'd been on Google Meets and coming from Google Meets onto Zoom, where it also didn't want to kind of, she had to go and change some settings, and that happens. So hopefully Sarah will be able to speak to us soon, but do check out those settings, Sarah, and see if you can find what the problem is, because I don't think there's anything we can do from our side. So yeah, and Michelle, you work with a lot of families that have issues as well. We can also replay Michael's video in a second, but I don't know if you want to talk about some of the families you deal with.
Yep, and there's many that will be significantly impacted by this. Now, certainly, so I don't know if people realise I do many hats, and one of the big hats in the home edit area is I'm one of the core team at Educational Freedom. And certainly in the last year, we have noticed many more local authorities putting obstructions in for parents withdrawing their children from a special school. Now, the current position, there shouldn't be a big obstruction. There should be a case of them checking that the parent has realised that if their child comes out of the special school, they might not get access to various therapists and things that are paid for and attached to the school. So that it's right that there's a mechanism to have that conversation, because there's a problem that every special school is pretty much oversubscribed. So if your child comes off the roll and you hadn't realised you would lose this and this service from your child, you would need to be able to have that space, which you'll have lost if the child's off the roll. So there's a perfectly legitimate reason to ask that question. But we found in the last year that many families who shouldn't be getting refused are being refused. And it's the refusal is a refusal to the school to take the child off their role, but they tell parents they can't home educate. And I've certainly had many more families than I normally have to intervene with, who've come to us where their child wasn't working in the special school. It just wasn't working. The child's on the school roll, but they're not actually attending. Everyone's quite happy for the child not to attend. So the child on paper in the document appears to be getting education. They're not. And the fundamental right is the child to have education. They're on this special school role, and the parents are like, well, I'm doing it anyway. I'm already home educating my child because my child cannot get through the school door. This includes children where their psychologists have documented school-based trauma. They've documented the school building is causing damage to that child. Yet even with that evidence, the local authority is saying, no, you can't home educate. We're not going to think. We don't think it's in your child's best interest. And so it's in the child's best interest to have no education because everyone agrees they can't get into school. And the worrying thing is that's what some local authorities are doing now. Now that's the proposal in this act, that the local authority can just decide, no, we think it's in the best interest for the child to be on a school roll. Now, obviously, we've been successful in helping the families to get all of those children off the school rolls and into home education. The reason we've been successful is because at the moment, the law doesn't say what the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act says. So at the moment, you can go, excuse me, what is your issue with the home education? Why do you think it's not going to be suitable? And that is the test. They can't go, well, we think it's in the best interest of the school. That's not the test yet. So at the moment, we've been able to get children off those school rolls. And one of the biggest bits is when they're on the school roll, a lot of schools insist on seeing the child, and the child then goes back into themselves, anxiety, harming themselves. The second they're off that school roll and no more welfare checks, the words I had from a family who I was supporting a couple of weeks ago was, I heard my child laugh again. I've not heard them laugh for years. And the only change, because they're actually by default been home educating for about 6 months, 7 months already, the only change was they now didn't have to have a check-in via online with the school. So now they were the child's home education, they could be happy and settled. But that child would not get, that particular child wouldn't get to laughing again if the act was in place now. And this is the thing, it's about remembering at the end of this, there is a child in every case, and children don't, sorry, I'm just reading a note at the same time. Children don't give up on education, but they do need to feel well in themselves. And if an environment is making them sick, the parent needs to be able to keep their child safe, because ultimately the parent is the primary safeguard of their child. They're the ones seeing the child not laughing. Now, at the moment, they can get their child's laughter back. But if this act is allowed to go ahead unchallenged, and this is part of the reason we need the legal challenge, that particular child may never find their laughter because that local authority wasn't going to give up. The difference is they don't have a choice at the moment, because it's not for them to decide what's in the best interest of your child if the education's suitable. And that's the key difference. This act changed that position. So that child may never have got their laugh back. Right, I'm just going to...
Yes, I've got it. Can you hear me okay, Michelle?
Yes, fine.
Yes, can you hear me? Because I've got a slight issue with my laptop. It's I think it's complaining, and I'm actually can't. It's not activating anything, so I can't actually even get back to the Zoom window to see anything. I can't. I'm kind of looking at the wrong screen, so I'm operating a little bit blindly here. So how is Sarah doing there?
I'm trying to send the Zoom link through a different way, because each time it's the same thing every time Sarah's joining. It's not letting, even when it looks to us like she's unmuted, Sarah's speaking and we're not hearing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to fix things this side, but it's kind of like my laptop's kind of gone frozen, even though the Zoom is continuing. So it's just that I can't navigate my way anywhere at the moment. I'm hoping it'll sort itself out shortly. And get over itself. It's just having a bit of a complaint. So at the moment I can't play Michael's video either. And yeah, and we're waiting for Sarah to be able to join us fully. with whatever issues she's having. So if I would love to be able to read people's comments, but I can't even do that at the moment. Isn't that weird? So I think obviously my laptop's just had it because I use it for a lot of these kinds of things, and it's protesting. And needs a bit of a disk cleaning or something. So Michelle, so it's just you and me right now then.
Yes, it is. It's just us. Just us right now.
Yeah, I'm just hoping I can get back so I can look at real people, not talk to my blank screen. So one of the things, can you maybe talk a little bit again about the need for witnesses for this case, because other people are joining us now, and there are families that have been in situations similar to Michaela's.
Yeah, I'm trying to also send the link on the other bit as well, which is the difficulty of trying to speak at the same time.
Yeah, we're having fun here with our technical issues. Hopefully I dare not do anything that will jeopardize the live stream, because I won't be able to get it back properly if I do. So I might just try joining on my phone as well, just to see if I can figure things out that way. Isn't it fun?
Yeah, if we had an extra join, might make a difference.
Yeah. So just bear with me. I'm coming in on another connection. So we didn't mean to have great big empty spaces on this broadcast.
There was no intention to be any empty spaces. In fact, it was intended to be so jam-packed that there would be no time to even think in between.
Yeah, it wants me to transfer to my phone. I'm scared if I transfer, we drop the live feed. It's like these are all unknowns, things I've never had to deal with before. So I'm just really, I'm not going to fiddle with it unless I know, I don't want to cause any harm. Although it should be fine as long as Michelle if you're in the Zoom.
Yeah, because I'm not going to come off, so it should allow.
I can't even get myself out at the moment, which is really bizarre. So just bear with me. Okay, I'm just staying on talking only at the moment. It's very bizarre. I've never had this happen before. So at the moment, Michelle is hosting.
I'm hosting, not very effectively hosting, because hosting isn't the bit I enjoy.
Yeah, so we haven't been able to get our next guest in properly yet. She's having issues as well. Sarah, at the moment, are you able to try again? It's really odd.
Yeah.
Technical issues. So bear with us. We will try and keep you entertained while we deal with our technical issues as well. But what I might have to do, I'm very wary of, I'm wary of restarting my laptop in case that cuts everything off. Goodness me.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah's trying to come in on a different account at the moment, to see if it's that because Zoom sometimes decides to just be Zoom, which is the thing.
Yeah. So I can't even do a Control-Alt-Delete to try and close down some things at the moment. It won't even do that. So we are fully having a tantrum. My laptop is. So,
well, what I'll do is I'll go through some of the bits off the crowd justice bit, just to remind people why we're here, why we're trying to raise the funds. So the main reason, you'll see my nice QR code by my ear, which will take you through so you can donate. It's because we're trying to raise funds for the legal challenge. So, a very brief summary. The Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act 2026 introduces powers that may allow the state to override parental decisions about a child's education, even where the education being provided is accepted as suitable. And we're seeking to bring a legal challenge to test whether these provisions are compatible with the Human Rights Act 1998, particularly the right to family life and protection from discrimination. So why do we need money? Why is there the call to action? Well, we're raising funds to bring a judicial review to test the lawfulness of these powers. And so we need your support if you believe that parents should not lose their rights simply because the state thinks it can do better. So then please contribute. So the current position for over 150 years, it's been very clear. If the parent provides a suitable education, that's the end of it. No authority should be intervening simply because it preferred an alternative. Whereas the Children's Wellbeing and School Act turns that on its head. It introduces something different. Now a local authority may agree the education is suitable, but they can still override the parental choice because it considers something else to be better or in your child's best interests. And obviously that's not a small change. It's a big shift over who makes the decision on what is in a child's best interests. So this isn't only, obviously it directly impacts educational choices, but it's wider than that, because it also creates a situation where parents can be prevented from making decisions even when the education is suitable. And it's also not about intervening because there's harm, but just because it prefers an alternative. And this is the bit, it's a really big shift of where it sits at the moment. Because at the moment, you carry on parenting. There are errors made already. And we've got some other families who'll be telling you their stories on the live in a little while. But ultimately, if you're not harming your child and your child's getting an education, you've been allowed to just get on with it. Whereas this changes that position. So even when no harm's established and everyone thinks education is suitable, the Act changes it so there are circumstances where the LA can still go, yeah, but we think it's the best interest for your child to be at school, even though no established harm and no questions on suitability of education. Now, we think this means they've gone too far, and that's why the legal challenge is so important. It gives serious rise to concerns, particularly around families of disabled children who are already subject to greater state control than others, and this then adds more. It gives concerns about parental autonomy being reduced just because your child has additional needs. And it's making it very clear the law is treating a group differently without proper justification. So why, because your child happens to have more needs than another child, is your decision as a parent not going to mean as much? And so these all engage with the Human Rights Act and the Equality Act. And that is why we feel we need the courts to test this. Because it will put it in the position where families may be prevented from removing children from placements that are not working. Parents may be subject to interventions following unfounded safeguarding concerns. And certain groups, particularly children with special educational needs, will be disproportionately affected. And so the balance between parent and state is fundamentally altered. This is about sort of testing the law and about, we're looking at the bits of, from the Human Rights Act, the Article 8, right to family life, Article 2 of Protocol 1, which is your right to education, and Article 14, protection against discrimination. These are all really important rights. So ideally, we need to get up to 250,000 so that we can properly test this. But at this point, we're trying to get up to that 40,000 mark to do what we need to do at this point in legal proceedings.
Thanks, Michelle, for that. I'm just trying to reach out for some technical help from our tech whiz. Jade is coming into the Zoom at the moment. Are you able to let her in there, Michelle?
Yep.
Which I just said, hopefully let's see if we can see her. Sarah, I'm so sorry we haven't been able to sort you out yet. Let's hope Jade doesn't have the same issues. Just stick with us, Sarah. We're going to try and find out what's happening. Hi there, Jade. You've come at a good time just to rescue us, really. because we're having some technical issues and we're just concerned about losing the live stream. One of our guests isn't able to actually speak at the moment. Sarah, I don't know if you've tried again to see if you can speak or turn your camera on. But please hang 10 with us and we'll do what we can. So Jade, thanks for joining us. While we're waiting to resolve some of these issues, what we'd really like to hear from you is your story, because we're looking at how this act can impact families. And you've had sort of first-hand experience of potentially knowing what that could mean. So we'd like to hear your story, and why this legal challenge is going to be so important.
Yes, absolutely. Can I just make sure you can hear me properly?
We can hear you, thank you.
Wonderful. That's the main thing. Yeah, so with me, I have 3 children with varying needs. I've got one who's got severe ME. I've got a younger boy with complex SEND and a middle child with a range of medical needs and mental health. They've got significant school trauma. And in my oldest son's case, it's meant a complete decrease in any chance of a decent quality of life, to the point he often resorts to having to kind of eat in the dark to manage his energy levels. For us, we've unfortunately been faced with multifaceted issues that haven't really been understood or comprehended, and it's caused significant harm to my family. I was actually looking back through some CPOM's data I had for a subject access request the day before yesterday, and one of the things in there was being accused of fabricated and induced illness for reassuring my daughter that it was okay to go into school and try, and that she'd have her healthcare plan to fall back on. But the documentation from that was that although I was supporting her, apparently I was encouraging or inducing her illness instead of using the scaffolding and plan for her, which brings for me more significant concerns, and something I've often faced is a real miscomprehension of what our voices as parents and what that means when we're trying to advocate for children with needs that aren't really understood. It's been a significant battle for us with my youngest before we removed him and returned to home education again. He was having night terrors. He was waking up shaking. He was on a 2-to-1. His development had completely regressed. His speech had regressed in turn because he realised that he wasn't understood in his communication profile. So the only way he could connect was by regressing to a younger way to communicate. Since taking him out and home educating him for the last year, he's leaped significant developmental sort of markers that were once sort of questions whether or not he could meet. I really am concerned that the reduced parental autonomy and what that means for families like ours, which I've been taken to court over the years for advocating for my son's medical needs with ME. I was taken and threatened to prosecute, but the local authority withdrew before taking it into the courtroom. And that was the choice of the solicitor on the day. But we went through a significant amount of stress. We often find that data doesn't link up. You would assume with a child which has such significant needs like my oldest son, there is no community care or access for him, nor can I get it. And we were on a constant cycle of almost basically being accused of medically neglecting him, frankly, just to phrase it exactly how it's been, because the services can't connect, nor do they understand the importance. The only way my children have learned is through home education, the only way it meets their needs in any way, and the only way my oldest feels like he's got a pathway to adulthood is through this pathway. And for me, when it comes to the current fight that we're all undertaking, it actually does worry me what it will mean for families like mine, when I've seen firsthand just how horrific it can get. Like, you never expect to walk up to school and see your daughter having a panic attack and pulling her hair out and just literally being watched by another staff member because they don't know what to do about it. You don't expect to be forced to carry your children into sleep just to meet an attendance quota. And equally, then they don't even bother to give him the breakfast that's in his lunch and wonder why he's then hungry later in the day. You don't ever expect to be in situations where you find out your 8-year-old with complex needs is spending 99% of his time out the classroom. My oldest son, he was registered at a mainstream secondary school for 4 years. He's never ever attended, never set foot in or never seen. And despite that, we had 2 medical tuitions removed on him because of his post-exertional release. And they still kept him enrolled, but then chose not to provide any further provision. So at that point, my son returned back to what he knew. But now he is sat there absolutely terrified that the current trajectory, especially with the CWS Act, is going to strip back everything. And the risk for us is very high. We're very easy to be misinterpreted and flagged up as being a bad family, when in reality we are literally just a family fighting for the most basic needs and the freedom to educate for our children.
Well, it's really quite a story, Jade. Now, as I explained earlier, we're having some technical issues, so I'm actually going to be logging out of my laptop or trying to restart it. We are hoping this won't interrupt the live stream because Michelle is now hosting the Zoom, but I just want to give our viewers a heads up.
Okay.
If this happens, we will try and get everything set up again as quickly as possible. So just bear with me, but Michelle, please go ahead and let's see if we can get Sarah in as well, but also just maybe if you want to ask Jade any questions about her story. You're muted, Michelle.
That was me forgetting to unmute. Sorry about that. So Sarah, are you able to speak now?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. Fantastic.
Yes. I wouldn't even try and attempt video. I have no idea what's going on there. This has been something else, this.
So, Sarah, I don't know if you were listening in there and could hear Jade's story. So
I can.
You know, Jade is actively living this and luckily is already home educating. But her circumstances could be completely different.
Yeah.
Had this act of been commenced at the point that she rescued her children from a failing education that was genuinely causing harm to them in the system. So
Yeah.
just want to sort of ask you things. Obviously, you're the lead claimant on this case. Do you want to sort of tell people a little bit about yourself? Because I know that's one thing. People look at the crowd just like, hang on, but who's Sarah? How do we know her? How do we trust her? What's her story, sort of thing? So I don't know if you want to just sort of let people know a little bit more about who you are and why you're put yourself forward for this.
Yeah. So I'm a director of a community interest company called Empowering Equine. And we work with kids who, from a mental health perspective, who either are really struggling with school or aren't in school. So a lot of the children I work with are on EOTIS packages. I don't know if everyone knows what that means.
You could maybe, like, in a couple of lines, a couple of sentences. I know EOTIS is very complicated, but in a couple of sentences, explain what you mean by EOTIS, just in case people don't.
So EOTIS is education other than at school, and it basically means when the local authority still keep responsibility for the child's education, which is where it is different to home education, but they accept that they cannot find a school that can meet that child's needs. So they sort of supply a package of alternative provisions and different tutors. So the LA maintain that responsibility, but it's not done through a school. And they're a bulk of the children I work with, but we also do grant programs for children struggling with mental health, and that is often where I meet the home ed community most. Or people that are at school and end up deciding to make the decision that home education is going to meet their child's needs better. And when this act first came out, what really worried me was a lot of the children I've worked with, if they didn't have either home education or EOTIS, and which is suitable is completely different for each family. Some of the children I've worked with, I don't know if they'd still be with us today. And I can't watch that. And I don't want to watch that. And for me, the child's needs being met is far more important than whatever is going on politically. And it's the damaging effect it can have on the child and the family that I just thought, I can't sit back. I can't watch the kids that I work with and the kids that and the families that put so much trust in me. I can't just sit and watch their rights be taken away with what could be a huge detrimental impact for their family.
Absolutely. And we're glad you did.
Thank you.
and I know if your service was near where Jade lives, but I know you're opposite ends of the country, it might be suitable for her middle child.
Yes.
But unfortunately, you're completely opposite ends of the country, so it's not an option for her family.
And I'm autistic myself. School was something that was manageable for me, and home education wouldn't have been appropriate for my family because it just wouldn't have worked for my parents or my family. But I also really struggled with school, and thankfully I did manage to complete it because we were very short on options. And it was also the 90s and early 2000s, so we didn't have the resources then that we have now, which I think was the big gap. But had I not managed, I was one of those children that was borderline at managing to get through school, not from a qualifications point of view, which is mainly why people thought I coped very well, but mainly from a mental health perspective and a bullying perspective. And I was one of those children that was really, really impacted by it and didn't have an opt-out because home education existed, but most people didn't know about it back then. So it wasn't an option that we even had thought of. Had I lived in today's times, it might have been an option that we could have considered, but we didn't know it existed. But I was one of those children that, was really borderline about getting through school and making it out, but also one that probably wasn't noticed because I was academic.
Yeah. And one thing that's coming through clear from most of the people we're talking to is potentially, and I'm using this phrase because a campaigner whose child is no longer with us, they'll be forever 17, actually put it on all their protest posters, is this bill will kill.
Yes.
And so from what you've said, EOTIS Home Ed has effectively ensured children can thrive who wouldn't be able to cope in a school setting, which the government's direction, even with their latest EOTIS consultation, seems to be the government doesn't seem to understand why we need EOTIS. We need EOTIS for children where school is not a realistic option to keep them safe for their mental health perspective. So that, and we're really glad you have put this forward. So obviously you're the lead claimant. I know there's other background claimants and things like that. And obviously it needs to be funded privately. It's not a legal aid option. And so am I right? I think Michael Charles said the reality is we need to be looking at 250,000 to be able to do this properly.
And
but if we get to 50,000, we can do that. Yeah, and you've not. Yeah, that's not in your pocket change. That's
I'm
not
afraid
money
I'm not
got.
loaded. I wish I was. I'm afraid I'm not.
Jade, have you got any questions for Sarah?
I suppose there's an area with this act that that we often discuss a bit, and this is Section 47 side of things. There's a lot of well, frankly, I hold a lot of concerns over the practice on a Section 47 inquiries, having my own experience quite recently with things. I wondered sort of what your main area concerns and what you've seen with that in support of families and why it's so important, so to speak. Obviously, we know that. I just thought it might be useful information.
Yeah, so the Section 47 is a large concern of mine. It's because families of children with SEND are more likely to end up with a Section 47 for so many different reasons. misunderstanding of autism and presentations, or lots of other neurodivergent conditions and presentations. Most social services don't have enough training on neurodivergence to really understand it, and signs of abuse can look quite, some signs of neurodivergence can look like signs of abuse and neglect that aren't. So section 47s are quite easy to raise, and there's lots of reasons that families can have them raised. The child struggling at school can be seen as a reason for them to be raised. They can be raised completely unrelated to a parent. They can be raised because somebody's been abused by a teacher or by another student. And it's just, for me, that's not a marker that should be where we start looking at interfering on a parent's right to decide their own child's education. My other areas of concern include the level of monitoring, because I feel like for some children that would make them unable to cope with both school and home ed. If they know that they can have social workers or local authority workers coming into their house to do visits and asking for lots and lots of information off them, it's going to make home ed unaccessible to some families. And then if school's not accessible and home ed's not accessible and the EOTIS isn't accessible, what is? And I feel like we're leaving families with nothing. The other element is the local authorities being able to override decision. I feel like unless a parent is abusive and neglective, and we have got pathways for that, then a parent knows their child far better than a local authority worker in 99.9% of cases. The 0.1% shouldn't villainize all parents. I just don't believe it should.
I completely agree. So my oldest son's in one of those 1%, so a little visit will knock him for 6. It'll take him 4 to 6 months to recover. And when they're compounded by extra sort of checks or higher levels of monitoring, it causes a complete cycle where all he can do is lie in bed in the dark, eat in the dark, hardly move, count his toilet trips. And it's no life. I have a significant concern over I suppose, the lack of quality of life we are asking children to live in.
Yeah.
And the risk to that, I suppose, is probably the way to put it. As someone with several children that get thrown, I mean, they've significantly school traumatized, and my oldest with his severe ME, even every little intervention is a massive concern. But equally, nobody understands the condition. Nobody wants to understand the condition or meet the child where he's at, so he can access. And it's baffling. It's really concerns me, especially moving forward with this act in itself. Is how are they even going to deliver foundations to ensure needs are met without further harm?
And the thing is, they have safeguards if they need them. So if they have a concern about a child's welfare, they have pathways and safeguards for that. That's why I feel as well this is unnecessary, because I'm aware there's a balance between state intervention and safeguarding, but they already have it. It's not the parents' fault that they aren't always able to act on it. That is usually underfunding of social services departments in cases that they've used as examples, like the poor Sarah Sharif case. It was horrific, but that actually, the home education wasn't what caused that. There was lots of social services intervention points, or social services underfunded, and also we don't know what's been overridden by judges. So there's a lot of different points in the process that are causing safeguarding mishaps, but I just don't feel like home education is one of them. I feel like they've got what they need. They've just, from a legal perspective, they've not got the funding to access it. And changing the rules isn't going to increase that funding.
Yeah, I think this is the thing that says it's pretty scary, because I think in many ways so many problems could be avoided if they just looked at the system itself.
Yeah.
And looked at doing things differently so that children don't feel that need to avoid, and I think the whole thing about it's not that children won't go to school, it's they can't.
Yes.
And it's not like they have a choice. And then we get these horror stories of some schools sending teachers who go up to the child's bedroom and yank them out of bed and drag them to school, because that always worked as a way to get people to want to do something, doesn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So there's a kind of a holistic thing that needs to happen, looking at the whole.
Yes, there is.
And having a genuine desire for children to actually have their needs met, that it is a place for children, and not a place for political gain, or looking good in the polls or whatever, because whatever they tell themselves. I think that's the narrative around it has to change. There has to be a genuine desire to want to understand. And so far, from the consultations we've had, and where we've been told, oh, we're listening, we don't really have a lot of faith in that, because what's being produced
There's no
indicates that
evidence
they haven't heard it
on.
all. Yeah, they just carry on regardless. We were talking about the one consultation last night, where basically the consultation ended this week, but they're already planning to implement. This was the information sharing. They already have a plan to implement it end of September. You're not going to tell me they're going to look at all the responses in that time and implement those by the end of September.
Not a chance, no. And thing is, this becomes even more concerning when you also look at the Send white paper and put the two in context together, because it's like they are trying to go, well, if we can't meet needs through very easy, basic changes, we're just going to force them to cope. And what they don't realise is that forcing them to cope isn't going to actually make them cope. It could have devastating consequences, both in terms of, the risk of serious harm, but also if you take the child out of the equation for a minute, which we know is what our government are doing, they're looking at money. Do they really think it saves money further down the line when people need far, far more support because they haven't had it young? That's not going to save money, which I'm aware is probably their main priority over the child. But even from a government perspective, this isn't going to save money further down the line. This is going to increase what we've got to spend.
I agree, because your long-term impact alone of children that are unable to go out to work because they've gone through burnout or whatever. So there's having to support children that did not succeed in school. There's potentially children that will end up on the street on drugs or whatever. There's a lot of other things that could have a knock-on effect because children did not actually thrive.
Prisons, mental health units, there's huge. And I've worked across a wide range. I've worked with home ediniotis families, but I've also worked with children in the care system. I've also worked with youth at risk of offending. And so much of that is due to needs not being met, not always through the fault of schools. There's lots and lots of different ways, because I work across a very wide range. But for a lot of those children, if that intervention could have been done earlier, this might not be where we're looking. And they're now going to increase the amount of children in that package, not decrease it.
Yeah. I think it's short-sighted thinking, really, and political point scoring. And of course, there's breakfast clubs that'll fix everything up as well.
So,
I think it's quite short-sighted. I've got three children with, as you know, Julia, I've got three children with very varying needs, and they are almost completely polar opposites to each other. And there is, even if I wanted to place them back on roll anywhere, which frankly I don't, home education is the path that works the best for them and allows them to thrive and be as well as they can be within everything. But like my daughter's still coming out of burnout, my boys are still coming out of burnout, the development and the quality of life that they've sacrificed. And the reality is, when you look at it, there isn't actually anything there that could facilitate or support those needs anyway. To have it kind of, I've had it barked to me for years, keep them in mainstream, keep them on roll, do this, that and the other, and you listen to that, and the result for us is frankly, it's been pretty devastating for my kids.
Well, parents
And
are burnt out as well from just fighting the system the whole time.
I ended up hospitalised several times. One with a suspected heart attack, the other one with a suspected stroke because of the stress. And I was still taking calls in there. The day I had a 4-hour surgery, 2 hours later, I was taking an EHCP call.
Wow.
The cost made me fear whether or not I would be around long enough to set my children up to live the rest of their life, if that made sense. Which is why I flipped to what I do now with the campaign and stuff, and why I do, I suppose,
Yeah.
fight so hard, because the sacrifice is strong and
Yeah,
it's
it
not
is.
fair.
It is, and this is why we're encouraging people to donate, because this affects so many families. I just want to quickly share screen here, and I can tell you that we are now at 33,626. So that's already, I think, £50 that we've had in during the time of this call, but we'd like to see a lot more come in. So please continue to share. Oh, ice cream van's going by. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but yeah. So
buy an ice cream, put it in, donate for this, because an ice
exactly.
cream's around a fiver
I
nowadays.
think, and I think if you think about it, because the coffees at Starbucks are like about £5 now, aren't they? You know, so just forego one of those, or some of the snacks that you know you shouldn't have. You know, and this is one way to assuage your guilt for cheeky, you know, snacks and takeaways. pay it into this. But yeah, we are hoping to have someone join us a bit later to share some ideas also on fundraising. And we will shortly also have Randall Hardy joining us as well. So he will be giving some of the information just about the political scenario over the past few decades, what we've seen happen. So Sarah, I mean, I say thank you for doing this, because it's a very necessary action and somebody needed to do it.
And you're welcome, definitely.
Yeah, and you know, we're so appreciative for all the work Michael Charles has done as well, and we are hoping that he will pop in at some point as well for us to at least just ask a few questions and that kind of thing. And we will also have Jen Hodge joining us a bit later. So I'm just glad we've been able to actually get everything. You might not have noticed, but I did actually restart my laptop and without the live stream being affected. So there's something new that we've learned today. And this is how learning happens. Yeah, you know, I would love to just see children happy. And I think there's really no reason for a child in a normal, healthy family to be unhappy, to be in an environment that can be controlled, that can be changed, for children to be unhappy in that environment. And you use your facility, don't you, Sarah, to facilitate learning with young people.
Yes.
And you know, you are witnessing every day the benefit of children being in a different environment and how they thrive.
Yeah, and we work in an environment that is child-led, child-centered, and it is a case of we've not got this set idea of this is what this child needs to do today. We walk in and we base that off the child, and we base that off the feedback we're getting off them, and people presume then that means you'll get nowhere, because if you're not used to seeing children have choice, you presume they're always going to make the wrong choice. Whereas actually, given choice, I mean, my specific bit is equine, so I am obviously in something that's quite interest led, in that most people are here because they want to work with horses or they just love horses. But some of the children that I've had through, and people have told me things like, oh, they don't have empathy, and I'm like, yeah, give me 5 minutes with the child and the horse, you'll see empathy, because they've not had empathy given to them, or maybe their way of showing empathy isn't a way that people are understanding. And by not having an agenda and letting the child have that choice over what they learn and how they learn, my God, do we get to see some amazing things that these kids can do.
Yeah. And I think this is like, for me, it's been the beauty of just being able to watch my own children, how they learn, even when you seemingly are doing nothing.
Yeah.
That children can still, I won't say can still, children are naturally born with an ability to learn, an ability to be curious and be interested. And it's only really if that environment is seriously stifled that wouldn't happen naturally. And even for children with quite severe disabilities, you can see them learn and grow when they are happy and cared for, and they feel secure. And I think this is where so many of the issues are, is we've got children who they might be in that building, but they've got such fear and anxiety that actually no learning is even occurring. Yet it's become so important that they be in that building.
And sometimes as well, and this is where I think local authorities particularly can get quite confused, if you have a child that academically does well, but is mentally having to lose large parts of themselves to be able to do that, what local authorities and teachers see is they're doing well academically, they're not getting in trouble. Why on earth would you want to pull them? But what they don't see is what it's taking from that child to do so, when they could do that in an environment that works for them and have the best of both worlds. They can have academic achievements if that child is built that way, and they can have their mental health too, rather than having to sacrifice their mental health. And we see a lot of children that are sort of quite academically wired, but then reach university and hit burnout, or leave university and hit burnout, and are unable to do the career they've worked so hard for, because they've had to hit burnout to get there, because they can do well academically, but they've got to sacrifice too much of themselves to do it. And this is what they see a short-term outcome of brilliant. You've got a child with a grade. So even those children that people automatically think you should keep in school, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best thing for them long term.
Yeah, it's all in the interest of meeting arbitrary standards.
Yeah,
in arbitrary subjects too. So that aren't necessarily going to be helpful for the child in future life. So Sarah, I want to just thank you for everything you are doing, and I really hope you're feeling the love and support from the home educating community. And we really would encourage as many of you as possible to support Sarah in this case, because it has the potential to change everything for all of us. It's not just about her, it's about a much wider thing, because whatever happens with this judicial review could have far-reaching implications for many, many people. So please do try and donate, or encourage others to donate, or hold fundraising events such as a bake sale. And actually, you know, with all the heat, car wash. Run a car wash. That will get the kids nice and cooled down while they wash cars and raise money to go into this fund. There's so many things, you know. Let's encourage our children to also participate and be part of this whole process, because that's also a learning experience for them. So anyway,
maybe a nice bucket challenge style thing in this weather.
Well, you might get your council coming down on you with water restrictions. So at least if car washing is at least serving a good purpose. But you know, we can, let's get creative. Let's get creative and think of how, because I think that the crowdfunder allows like a minimum £5 donation. So as long as you can get a few people and you can raise £5 or £10 or £15, it's all going to add up. And we would love to see this fund grow and grow and grow. But you also need to share it on your networks, because we find the algorithms these days are not very friendly to this kind of thing. So we need to make sure word gets out there in all our networks, all our groups as well. So Sarah, I'm just going to say thank you for joining us. You're welcome to hang around and join in the chats and so on. But also if you need to leave quietly, that's also absolutely fine.
Before
I'm going to welcome.
I just point out one thing that might help with from a fundraising perspective.
Yes.
There is a huge link between this and the Send White Paper, because the Send White Paper is also removing rights, whilst the home education option is being removed too, or reduced too.
Yes.
So I do wonder if there was a way of getting that message across to the wider SEND community of, just because home education isn't what's suiting your family, don't presume there's no links between this and your child's SEND rights in the future. Because I almost wonder if this is a little bit of a test as well of how much of a reaction they get from taking rights.
I think it generally is. And the other point to remember is also that, like with alternative provisions such as yours, you know, they're going to be wanting you guys to send information.
Yes.
to share information about people who've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And that puts a burden on you, and you may not want to share that information, but you may not have a choice.
And it reduces trust between families and providers.
Exactly. And I think that this is a point that hasn't been made enough of, is that I'm sure you don't feel comfortable with sharing private information about people. So, this has to be, people aren't aware of that duty that is in the Act. So you do need to be aware of it. And a lot of people who are making use of alternative provisions need to be aware of that. So, obviously, if the child is still linked to a school, that is different. But if you're home educating and you're going to be using any settings, you need to be aware that this could be something in the Act where your information is shared. By law,
it's remembering that they already have safeguards. So, for example, as a provider, if there is a genuine safeguarding concern, I would still have to raise that, and of course would, if I saw genuine safeguarding concerns. So there's already this structure in place for genuine safeguarding.
Yes, you have to have a safeguarding policy and all of that.
Yes. So they don't need it to the level they're trying to get it for safeguarding, because we already have it.
Yeah. And the issue is that there are so many children, they already know about that, they're failing. So this is why we protest this, really. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us, and thank you for your campaign. We are also hoping we can clip this, cut up this video as well, so we'll have little clips that can be shared as well for people to find out more. So right now I'm going to welcome Randall, who's joined us quietly in the background.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sarah. And Randall is well known to the home educating community for trying to point out the warning signs and the red flags and shouting a warning. And we just thank you, Randall, for all the work you and your wife Mary have done over the years. And what we're really wanting you to talk a bit about today is the direction of travel. So this isn't something that just suddenly happened in the last year or so. This is something that's been going on for a long time. And I know you have all the records, and you forget nothing, and you keep records of everything. So we're very thankful for that. So so I'm going to hand over to you, and we're, as I said to you, we can, we might want to ask some questions here and there, but I know you know your stuff. So yeah.
Thank you both for having me, and wonderful that I got straight in without any trouble, like some of your earlier guests. So I'm pleased about that. Yes, you asked me to give you something of a background, because I think we need to understand the background to what's happening in the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act and many other pieces of legislation. We've just had the SEND review mentioned, and this is all part of a package, but I'm going to cover that a bit more. But it is important to do it so we know what actually we're fighting. And one of the things I want to say is, I think it's been mentioned, I haven't been able to listen to everything so far, but I think Michael Charles mentioned that this is a human rights issue. And that's why we need to understand the roots of this, where it's come from, and the threat it poses. So in the time you've told me what my brief was, I've put together a few slides. I hope to talk to, let's be realistic, round about 15 minutes. And then if people want to put questions in as I'm going through, I'll take them at the end. And I'm sure between you two, if I don't provoke questions from everybody else, you'll come up with some. But let me share my screen, and then we'll get talking. Hopefully this will work. Looks like it.
Yeah, you're there.
Wonderful. Right, now just let me get to the right place here. Okay, so what I want to do briefly is give us some background understanding to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act in its context. The context it's come in, and there you can see that's a screenshot of the act on the Parliament's website, legislation. But I'm going to be right up to date. I want to quote our new, not yet Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, from his speech yesterday, which was televised. And the phrase that hit me was, "I am clear. Britain took a series of wrong turns in the 1980s. Well, I might say we began to take them before then, but he is right. He says slowly at times imperceptibly, over 4 decades, political and economic power draining their way out of our communities in every region and nation of the UK. I hope this isn't just rhetoric that he hopes people will like him, but I think he's very right there. There has been something happening for decades now, not just in this country, but in the West, where power has been taken away. I'll come back to what he didn't say in a minute. But what's those 4 decades? Very quickly, those are the prime ministers he's complaining about. I'm not surprised Thatcher's there, given that he's on the other side of the house. But please notice it includes Tony Blair's and Gordon Brown's time. So he's actually criticising some of Labour's icons from the past. The reason David Cameron's got orange dates next to him, by the way, if you don't remember, his was a coalition government with the Lib Dems. He's criticising them, and every Conservative Prime Minister since. And even though he spoke warmly about Keir Starmer, he's included Keir Starmer 2 years in those decades. So what he didn't include in the long list of what's gone wrong, here are my 3 points. He didn't comment on the fact that state no longer trust parents nor the extended family to protect their children. Its alternative belief is that ultimately only the state, can properly provide for every child and protect them. I stuck the word provide in there because of the ridiculous thing about every child getting a free breakfast. You know, not every child needs the state to feed it a free breakfast, but it's what the state is thinking. And it's this doctrine which underlines much of the Children's Wellbeing in School Act, not just the children not in school registers. So, for example, and I will come back to one of them in a minute, other clauses, other sections 2, 3, and 4 all come under child protection and safeguarding. And all of those feed into this narrative that has impacted home education and the freedom to take children out of school when it doesn't suit them quite badly. And the one I will be mentioning is the information sharing approach. I haven't got time to go into consistent identifiers, but they all fit together. And added in lately, in its journey through Parliament, the bill, we got the online safety, which is causing lots of rumours about, is it the state's duty to tell teenagers what they can and can't do, or is it the parents' responsibility? We're not going to discuss that one. But there's been other recent legislation that have all fed around this area. Online Safety Act, Data Use and Access Act, all about what people can and cannot see. And the one that really worries me is there's been a consultation on it already, is the Child Protection Authority for England. One reason it worries me is because there's a Child Protection Authority in the Republic of Ireland, and that's been causing a lot of trouble for home educated families. So there's plenty here that's all packed around it. So here's my illustration, thanks to a guy called AI. of what the mindset is in the state child protection industry. If a child is in our trolley, they are safe. If they're not in our trolley, like the home educated kids in the background, they're not safe. AI came up with a really good illustration that I think I know which ones look most happy. I didn't tell it to make the ones in the trolley miserable, but to me, that is the mentality we are fighting. So how did we get here? I'm going to take you on a very quick home education timeline. I'm going to miss out a lot of the chunks, but I've put them in here. So if you watch the video back, you can stop it and have a look at them. Or perhaps if I get permission to stick the video of this onto my website, I'll give you the PDF of the slides as well. We're no longer in the days of the home ed pioneers. I'll call that 50s to 60s. There's a lot of people, one of them, I'm sure you know about Joy Baker, but there were others who were real pioneers of the freedom to home educate. Those days are gone, and I fear too many home educators live back in the 50s to 70s. But as Burnham recognises, societal changes began in the 1980s at the very latest. And the first marker we need to be aware of is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. The UK signed it in April 1990. That was in the last 12 months of Margaret Thatcher's premiership. It was ratified with reservations in December 1991, and by then John Major was the Prime Minister. However, it did not impact things very much as far as legislation was concerned until the Children's Act 2004, which was brought in by Blair's government. It was based on the 2003 Green Paper, Every Child Matters, and it implemented a lot of things that were required because we had ratified the UNCRC. Amongst these were the establishment of children's commissioners, the merging of education with children's social services, and it also set up the means for putting in place a thing that then was called Contact Point, which totally failed. And its Contact Point was really the forerunner of what we've now got as the unique identifier, boosted by AI, a number so that you don't get John Smith and Johnny Smith as two different children, and so on. It is all that agenda is still going forward. It's just been refreshed. Nothing was said really at that stage about home education. We had to wait until 2006, and I must admit I didn't find this till relatively recently. A gentleman called Ivert wrote a report which was published in August 2006. It was about the Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities and home education. But the report went further than just that community, and the key recommendation was a standardised national system of registration for all home educated children. That is the first mention I have found of that being put into practice. And as we know, they've struggled for long years to bring it in. A bit more key was written in two letters. There were different letters, one by the Education Minister, Alan Johnson, and one by the Schools Minister or somebody in the upper house, Lord Adonis. And they were answering different questions about home education, but they obviously had the same script writer. And the letters say the state does not currently prescribe what form of education parents should provide. whilst all maintained an independent school provision is prescribed in legislation and subject to inspection. This anomaly is at odds with the Every Child Matter reforms supported by the Children Act 2004. So that is a very clear indication that what has been brought about in the Children Not in Schools registers in the CWS Act is designed to make the state be able to prescribe that what is taught and inspect how it's being taught, even in home education. It's as clear as anything, but it hasn't been engaged with, and we need to. And I don't know how the government has responded or how they will respond to this legal challenge, but I think they will come out and they will have to admit in the end they want every child's education to be prescribed and inspected by the state. Now, I'm not going to go through all these, but following that, the ball started rolling with what many of you will have heard of, the Badman Review, launched in January 2009. Ed Balls, who was the Education Minister, brought in the Children's Schools and Families Bill in 2009. That was the first piece of legislation to have registers in it. That clause was removed prior to the 2010 general elections. Then things went quiet until we had conversations raised up by Michael Wilshaw of Ofsted in 2015 about illegal schools and the connection with home education. Lord Surley picked up, he was very much in favour of the Children's Schools and Family Bill provision. He picked up in June 2017 a private members bill, and his bill was never going to get through, but it got stirred up the muck. It got everybody's attention back on this question. And lots of things happened. I'm not going to read them all. There's just a whole lot of things there that happened over the next 2 or 3 years. And it went through, and even the Education Committee had an inquiry which riled a lot of people and brought some of us into contact with each other who hadn't known each other. That rumbled on till the Schools Bill in 2022. That was abandoned in the December, and you will remember there was a whole host of things happening there. So that's it. That all went before the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill. That screenshot is from December. It's a different colour now if you go onto the page. But that is all that led up to the bill. Now, what's happening as a result of it? We know what's happening in the register side, but this is something that landed on my desk. Somebody amongst the home educating communities went to this seminar run by the DFE on the information sharing duty, and got a copy of the slides as a PDF and circulated it to me and to lots of other people. And they know who they are. And I want to say thank you very much. It was really helpful. Okay. That was the first page. This is the second page. There's too much there for me to go through. But when I saw that page, it really gave me one strong impression. Just let me take what is at the top and blow it up so you might be able to read it unless you're on a phone. Under the information sharing duty, what are we trying to address? Children and families will interact with a range of services at one time, and each organisation may have a unique insight into their lives. Effective information sharing is essential to build a fuller understanding of a child's life. to early identify need or concerns before escalation and provide timely support. If you read that slow enough, and I hope I did, that tells you they want to know everything about every child. They want it all coordinated to stop any problems arising. Now, when you think that might be a good aim, you have another question. What damage is it going to do into prying into every child's life? This is a real question we need to be asking. And what do I mean? You remember that big target thing? There you are, you've got the diagram. I've taken the middle because it's so small, even in the original, it's hard and it's very blurry there. But right in the middle is the child surrounded by their multi-ethnic family. We're not going to go into it in details, but right at the middle of this. And so this gives me the impression of an arena with all these different agencies and people in those agencies peering in to the family to protect, inverted commas, the child. We've heard earlier this afternoon about how some of these people don't understand the child and the damage they do by not wanting the child to do what's best for them. Saying, oh, it's not in their best interest. But this is that you are putting every child in the middle of an arena. And all this is focused on the child. If you want to know what the layers are, I've blown up the key. Starting at the bottom, the outer ring is national government departments. Then you've got national arm's length bodies like the Children's Commissioner and national charities. They're involved in this. You've got the statutory safeguarding partners. You've got the multi-agency safeguarding hub, MASH membership. And then you've got local services, frontline interaction with the family. All these different layers are not trusting the family to keep the child safe. All these are set up to protect the child because the state does not trust the family, the nuclear family, nor the extended family. There is one area here that isn't quite government. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a red ellipse, and I've highlighted the word third sector. The two square boxes are national charities. The one they list, NSPCC, Children's Society, and Barnardo's. And then in the middle, you've got community and voluntary organisations. All the rest of that diagram is about state partners, state stakeholders in your children. But I didn't quite know what MCHLG meant. So I looked it up, and it's the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Governments, which therefore oversees even the charities and the third sector organisations. So there's that diagram, going back to it. What does this diagram suggest? Well, to me, I've already mentioned what I suggest, but I'll put it this way. That we live at a time when many people believe it takes the state to raise every child. Parents, the extended family, the village just can't do it. This is the setting of the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. They talk about our children, not your children, not my children, but our collective children. The state assumes that every state player is a stakeholder in your child's life. And that is an economic mindset to them because they are investing money in your children and they don't want your children to be a burden on the state going forward. That works out in lots of ways. But this is mindset perfectly illustrated for me by this diagram. I'm coming to a close, and I want to go back to kind of where I started, because I started with the UNCRC, and UNESCO is the body that is meant to implement the UNCRC worldwide, oversee its implementation. And in September last year, it published its homeschooling through a human rights lens. There is other things available about it, but I just want to highlight this. They also published a press release on the same day, and the final section asks the question, what are some key considerations around homeschooling? And this is what they're recommending to governments worldwide. Key considerations include ensuring that homeschooling fosters child well-being, acknowledges the diversity of homeschooled learners, and encourages exposure to cultural diversity. I could talk about that for a while. I'm not going to. It's the red underlined bit I want to emphasize. Governments must. Notice the word there. It is governments must. Not should, not could, not may. It is must. UNESCO is telling every government in the world that it must implement oversight mechanisms such as registration and evaluations, while ensuring regulatory capacity and providing parental support. We'll come on to parental support another day. That's a Weasley word. But notice registration and evaluations. That is what Alan Johnson and Lord Adonis said in their letters was the missing anomaly about home education, pointing back to the Children's Act 2004 and the Getting It Right for Every Child, both of which come out of joining the UNCRC. So the driver for what we're seeing is not silly politicians. The driver is very much this international agenda that is being marketed through human rights. If you want the evidence, recent stories from Finland, from Brazil, from Holland, where the headline is really, I think the government in The Hague tells homeschooling parents to send their children to school. Blanket thing. The last one is from New Zealand. They got the government to back down there recently, but if you read the report carefully, it's being paused so that the government can think about it, and obviously they'll try and do it. So one last slide. I want to highlight what I believe is the difference between how the human rights culture, the international law culture was introduced after 2 world wars and how it's been operated today. On the left, you have a family in the 1950s who remember very well that in the world wars, you had authoritarian states dominating citizens. Hitler is famous because his regime was really totalitarian, authoritarian, but there was others. There was Hitler, there was Russia, there were others. There was communists and they were right wing. And totalitarianism can belong to any side of politics. But people in the end of the 1940s and 1950s wanted protecting from totalitarian states, and human rights was sold to them on that basis. And the child on the left-hand side is holding up a shield faced by an aggressive looking state and saying, I have got human rights to protect me. By today, those human rights have been shaped into something else. They're a sword to divide children from their parents, to let the state into the home. And if you remember, if you've seen it, if not, please find it and read it. Last year, the Christian Institute published a legal opinion from Aidan O'Neill QC, and he kept talking about a post Nuremberg society. Britain is a post Nuremberg society. He was reminding people that human rights were created with the vision of the 1950s, and now they're being used as a weapon against citizens in the 1920s. Oh, sorry, in the 2020s. So that is the context, and that is why I am pleased to see this legal action we're talking about has got this human rights component in it. It is vital. It has to be pressed that human rights are being abused. I'm going to stop there, and I hope you got lots of questions and things.
Well, I think, Randall, it's actually quite shocking to see how far this has come, And we've got Michael Charles joining us. He might not be on camera, but he is joining us quickly. So, and he is out at the moment. And I just wanted to say, Randall, the one thing that when you were sharing about the information sharing aspect, the kind of thing, a picture I had in my mind is this kind of peekaboo, I know everything about you kind of mentality, like there's no sort of privacy left. So, yeah, so Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I know you are very busy and we're not going to necessarily get you on camera. So we have been talking today about the legal challenge. We have had some donations in, not as many as I'd like. It hasn't shifted in the last while. So I would like to see the more donations come in. But, and Randall has just been talking about the human rights aspects of where things are heading, and that this legal challenge needs to challenge on the basis of human rights. I don't know if you're able to unmute and join us. We have had some technical issues with some people today, so please do let us know if you're having difficulty joining us on the Zoom call today. I don't know if he's able to.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yes. Thank you so much. So I know you haven't been able to see what we've been talking about. But yeah, this is really a human rights issue, isn't it?
Well, there's only one vehicle that you can use to challenge an act of parliament, and that's because there is an act of parliament that permits you to do so, namely the Human Rights Act. And what I'm saying, and I hope that people who might have been participating today might have had the opportunity to have read the letter before claim that I had issued. And within that letter, I have said that for over 150 years, parents have generally been trusted to make the decisions about what constitutes the best interests of their children. And for the first time in so many years, the state is empowering itself to make a best interest override, so that in certain circumstances, the state can decide whether your child can be home educated. And there are two circumstances within which that can be applied. The first is when you are within a special school, you would have to seek the state's consent to withdraw the child from a special school, or where you are subject to a Section 47 investigation. And we all know, many of us will be aware, that Section 47 can be triggered often by false material, false information, or a misjudgment. But you have, where you have a Section 47 instigated and a finding, even if it were a provisional finding, that will prevent you from exercising normal parental autonomy to decide where you would want your child to be educated. And so that is, I think, the first of its kind. It's not in any way, in my view, satisfactory. It's unlawful, I would say, an intrusion into the rights of parents, interference with their parental autonomy, and then obviously an interference with their Article 8 rights. And the state argue, and they claim in succinct terms, that we are premature in our application. There's other reasons, by the way. why this challenge is being brought, but those are the primary reasons, alongside the data sharing provisions, which we say is unnecessary. It's a disproportionate way to monitor the actions of parents. So we say that's disproportionate. They say that we are acting prematurely on the grounds that the statutory regulations have not yet been drawn up. We say that is not the case, because the Act of Parliament is in itself empowering the state to have these powers, whereas the regulations can only do what the Act of Parliament tells the state that it's authorised to do. Namely, it has the best interest override. That's already in place because of the legislation, whereas the statutory regulations is simply going to explain the processes that will achieve those statutory aims. So we think that if we wait much longer, we will lose the chance to challenge the Act of Parliament, because if we wait until the statutory regulations, our primary claim would be that that the Act is incompatible with the Human Rights Act, and no doubt the state will then say that we're out of time. So you can't win in these situations. Yeah. It's extremely troubling, so worrying for so many parents. You know, I've spoken a lot about this and dealt with a lot about this online, but I think that the long and short of it is we're in for a shout. The barrister who we've instructed is enthusiastic. He praised my letter before claim. He said it was exceptional. He also felt that my response to government, which I haven't published, but in succinct terms, I said that they, at first blush, when you look at what the state has been saying, you might be impressed by their argument. It might sound compelling, but they are only extracting in their argument certain paragraphs of judgments of the court without looking what the appellant judgments have said, and without looking, more importantly, at what the Grand Chamber has said in the European Court of Human Rights. So I think we're in for a shout. It's a huge task. There's no doubt it's a huge amount of effort. It's taken an enormous amount of time. We're primarily looking for witnesses to help us with the claim. And I published a post on my Facebook page a day or so ago where I explained, if you meet the criteria that I've summarized, we want simplicity. We just want really a parent to say, ideally, who is, let's say, having a child educated within, let's say, a dyslexia school or a school for mild conditions, which would otherwise, that child would otherwise be treated as a mainstream candidate, to be able to say, actually, I don't want my child to be subjected to the state having such interference, and to say, I don't like that. Although my child is happy in a special school, we would not want the state to prevent us from choosing another school should the circumstances for my child change. That's a very simple statement, and we're needing that, because a lot of parents who do provide their explanations go into a lot of detail about what their circumstances are, and of course that might overcomplicate it. And another person would be someone who is on a we would call it, to excuse the language, an unconventional form of education, not necessarily what we would typically expect in a mainstream school. Say someone who's on equine provision or forest school provision, to say that my child is thriving through that, and to the idea of them being prevented from pursuing their love and their career aspirations in those different components in their life, would be an unlawful infringement. So we want someone to say that too. And then, of course, so simple witness statements along those lines is what we're looking for. I'm sorry, I talked a lot there.
Yeah.
So
no, that's fine, because at least you know what you're talking about, which I think is very important. And, you know, I'm very fond of saying, you know, the law is the law. So you're talking about, you know, if they bring in the secondary you know, legislation, the regulations and so on, it does not change the law, what the law says.
No.
And that's what the previous, we have used the previous laws as a bedrock on which to stand in upholding our rights in respect of home education. but because that exists. But if that's where it all starts, is with the law itself, the original act. And
Indeed.
the thing that concerns me the most, there's been such a mistrust of parents that's developed, such a mistrust. But yet we know the state has got a pretty bad record itself of actually doing what's right for children.
Oh, that is so true. I mean, and the thing is, one only has to look at the OETAS consultation document to see what the state's view is in respect to home-educated children. It's pretty clear what they are going to, in the circumstances when you are holding an EHCP and a child with special needs requires education other than within a school, the state is saying that you will lose your opportunity to challenge a decision to cease to provide education otherwise than at school for the child. You can't challenge that, and you won't be able to pursue an aim to secure that within an EHCP. That's what the state is actually telling us. So I think the writing's on the wall in relation to education otherwise than at school. In regard to elective home education, I don't think it's really much different, to be honest. I think the state is looking at this now, and it's treading further and further into these rights with a view. I have no doubt the idea ultimately is to stop it. I got no doubt about that.
Yeah, I don't call it treading; I call it steamrolling. So,
well, yes, I think you're absolutely right about that. I will come on camera just quickly to say hello. So just say that. Here we go. Because I'm in a very beautiful part of the world. You probably see it. Look at that. Look at that beautiful park.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
really
I'm
lovely.
actually at a funeral.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. This is such an important cause, and we really, really need to support this as much as possible. So please, we are here today. You'll see we've called this the power of many, because there are many of us. There are enough. And yes, the crowdfunder gives you a minimum of £5 that you can donate. But if you are stretched, join up with a few other people with your £1 or your 50p's and get that money in to donate. But we do not want anyone being put out of pocket as well. If your children need food and it's between that and this, obviously we don't expect you to starve your children to support this, but encourage others to support it. And we need to see this fund grow significantly so that Sarah and Mike and anyone else working on this, they know they've got the support and they can carry on without any financial worries about it at all.
Yeah, can I also say just quickly, and before I go,
yes,
you're absolutely right about that. I mean, we've managed to secure through the promotion on Facebook, we managed to secure around £32,000, I think, or thereabouts.
You're heading for 34.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was 32, but we managed to secure that, and it's going to be taken up. I mean, the KC, for example, is going to cost a formidable amount of money. There's no doubt that the government is planning for around a £250,000 fight here, so we will run out of money quite soon. And not forget that we also have the problem about, should we fail, we don't want Sarah or indeed Eva to be out of pocket or to face a cost order. So we need a level of protection for their bravery. And I think without that funding, I think they'll be vulnerable.
Yes, and so this is why we're here today, is just to encourage people to help us to raise the money. It is entirely possible. It is. You don't need to put in a load of money, but we need everyone who can, everyone who's affected, everyone who understands the implications of this act to contribute. So please, you need to continue to share this. And we are hopefully going to have Rachel join us to talk a little bit about, well, actually, she's not joining us. I think she sent a message, but we will hear a little bit about some ideas of how you can raise funds, and we will talk a bit about that. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you all for doing what you can, and I hope to see you again soon. I'll be posting about it. There'll be some developments this week because we'll have the draft grounds available tomorrow. Sunday, I'm expecting them, and we're hoping to issue the proceedings. Well, we have to issue the proceedings by a week Tuesday.
Okay, we're all right behind you, Mike.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
So that was Michael Charles, who's this solicitor who has been instructed to support or help Sarah with this legal challenge. And you know, many of you have read his posts on Facebook and so on, and you know that he is coming from a place of legit, you know, real sincere concern for what this act means for so many families, because that's his job. That's what he works with. He works with families that are impacted, and he's very aware of that. Randall, do you have anything else that you wanted to add at this stage?
No, I was just waiting on because I realised Michael was there and it was time limited. So I don't know if there was anything coming in while I was talking on.
I didn't see many other comments, but obviously, you know, it is extremely concerning to see the direction of travel, of where things were, and the respect for the family, the understanding of the family unit, and that there were certain thresholds the state did not cross. But yet now it's becoming like, oh, well, we have a right to, you know, because the child. And yet there's very little evidence to suggest that it's going to make any significant difference. And in fact, I think we'll see more harm being done through this. And, you know, people are going to be impacted, children are going to be impacted. And we cannot be quiet about this. We cannot. We really, really need to raise the alarm and let people know. We've Michelle and I have been struggling with people like Randall and others to inform people about this when it was still a bill.
I think
to try and fight back on it. And, you know, now we're past that point. What can we still do? And this is one thing we can still do.
I think that there is one thing we take encouragement from, but we've got to realise it. The home educating community have got to realise it. The illustration I'll use is that the petition, which suddenly took off last year, when Starmer started talking about digital ID, and suddenly people realised that what was in the bill was digital ID for children, all children. And the hard thing is to get away from saying, look, this is happening to us poor home educators. This agenda affects every child.
Yeah, and there are many people that didn't listen.
Everybody's child. Yeah. The illustration being that in 2013, I think it was, when the government, on a similar track to the Every Child Matters here in England, in Scotland, it was called Getting It Right for Every Child. And part of that was the named person scheme. And the home educators in Scotland smelt a rat with that. And they got a legal opinion, a low-level one, but they then took it to different organisations, one of which was the Christian Institute. And the Christian Institute said, yes, this is right. This will affect every child in Scotland, not just home educated ones. And they ran with it, and the Christian Institute lost that case. And even in this crowdfunder, if we can see that this fact that the government is taking away parental responsibility from families, they are in fact taking it therefore away from every family.
Yeah.
And we have got to make it known that this is why it concerns everybody, not just those who are home educating. It affects even those who wouldn't touch home education with a barge pole at the moment.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that when we have been trying to raise awareness of the act, of the bill, when it was still a bill, and the concerns we had, and then when the social media stuff crept in at the 11th hour, you know, people not really thinking it affects them. But yet it is going to affect adults as well as children. And, you know, it's sad that we were right. We don't want to be right about these things, but we are going to see this erosion, which is very, very worrying.
And you know, I'll just finish with that point. I'll just come back to that point. It's not just even in this country.
Exactly.
The one good thing to say is there is one nation, one leading prominent nation that has never signed the UNCRC, and that is the USA.
Mm.
And the reason they didn't was that the homeschooling lobby there spotted the dangers well in advance, and they lobbied and they lobbied and they lobbied, and
Yeah.
they never, the US has never ratified the UNCRC. Doesn't stop people in the States trying to get it in by the back door, but it's there. But the agenda is that it is the state's job to ensure that every child gets their rights. No, human rights was written to stop the state denying children rights.
Yes,
Not,
but
not,
yes,
so
because
that
there's been countries where children have been really badly treated because they didn't have that. And I think I've lost my train of thought. But we wanted to move on a little bit to some fundraising ideas and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And are you having to head off?
I will move on now. I was just, conscious of I didn't know when your next guest, so I'll leave you to do that. So thank you for having me. And I may well be listening in. Okay.
And yes, you can upload, and because then we can signpost to your website as well.
Okay. So
yes.
I'll get the video one way or another. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And this is why it's so important to donate, because we are fighting for this. This is really we are down to whatever we can do now. It's because this has been kind of an immovable force, this whole bill. So we're having to try and manage the damage of it now, aren't we?
And as Michael Charles said, this is a £250,000 case. This is the reality.
Yes.
But we need to get these stages happening. And as you got it straight off the press, you've got the dates. That's literally, he's reviewing the draft grounds tomorrow. Proceedings will have to be out within a week Tuesday. So you've had it straight from the solicitor's mouth. It is happening really soon. Once those proceedings start, the costs start racking up very, 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 very quickly. So it's really good to see that the crowdfunder has increased a little bit. Well, since we started today a little bit, but it hasn't increased since we've been talking in the last
We've had
hour.
another £20 donation. Thank you very much to Amy, who donated an extra £20. So please keep them coming. Keep them coming.
And the other bit is, Phil, if you've got a story that needs saying, when you put the comment, you can be anonymous. Put your story in there. We've got the stories in there. Well, somebody gave what they'd won when because of the LA's poor treatment to them, to that, and they've written in the comment about how their family was treated, how their child's education was not appropriate. So add your story when you donate as well, because then we've got a really good public record of. It's not just them, it's all of us as parents that you failed, and you who failed us should not be given the right to override us. So we've got the individual crowd justice bit, people can share and can share too and put money in. So we've gone a whole £100 in the 2.5 hours since we started. So we have raised £100, which is fantastic. The other bit is, as well as putting into Hear Yourself, sharing it, is set up your own fundraiser. Now, I know Jade, who's sort of lurking in the background still, is planning on setting up some local fundraisers to her. In addition, they're watching on Facebook Live in the Fix the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act page. Rachel from Send Allies Shropshire has been supporting others to set up small fundraisers, but has also set up what started to be a small thing into now what's called Country Fest. And she's been doing that alongside, I think it's Nicola from Individual Pathways Shropshire. So I'll just tell you a bit about the thing that started as just like we might do a bake sale and a raffle locally, and has now turned into a massive big country festival. which I'm popping along to, and Sarah's popping along to as well. So to try and encourage that.
Oh, but we need the date and all of that event, don't we?
Yeah, yes. But let me read what Rachel said.
Okay.
And any information like that, Rachel's quite happy to pop it in the thing. So Rachel, if you can put the dates of Country Fest and stuff in the Facebook live page, and then I can then remind people. So they've called it Country Fest. So Country Fest was created for two important reasons. So this is a speech Rachel sent across to me. Firstly, we're raising funds for Individual Pathways Shropshire, which is their new volunteer-run home education group. They meet weekly to provide opportunities for children and young people to learn, socialise, and simply be themselves in an environment where they are understood. As a new group, every penny they raise goes straight back into creating more opportunities, resources, and activities for the families who need us. Secondly, they're raising money for this Crowd Justice Fund, because many of us have lived experience of the SEND system. We know the emotional, financial, and personal toll it takes on families. We also know that if nobody stands up and challenges what they believe isn't right, nothing will ever change. We have to try, because if we don't, we'll never know what difference we could have made. So the Judicial Review, as we've said, is about asking the courts to consider important legal questions about the CWS Act and whether aspects of it are compatible with existing legal protections, including those under the HRA and Equality Act. We believe those questions deserve to be properly tested. Every pound really does matter, whether it helps fund another activity for their group or supports the legal challenge. Every donation makes a difference. Rachel's not going to pretend that organising Country Fest has been easy. Anyone who knows Rachel knows her ADHD brain never stops and ideas seem to arrive all at once. There have definitely been moments of chaos, but every step has been worth it. Their hope is that on the 23rd of August, so that's when it is, the 23rd of August, families will come together for a fantastic day out, making lasting memories and enjoying everything Country Fest has to offer. They'd love to see as many people as possible getting involved, whether it's entering their fun dog show classes. So this is what I said. It started as just going to be a tiny thing. This is what it's turned into. They've got fun dog show classes. They've got a hobby horse competition. They've got a raffle. They've got meeting Casper the Unicorn, or simply just coming for the atmosphere. Every person who attends is helping to support both causes, so the local cause and this legal challenge. And obviously they can't wait to welcome us. And they're really excited. Oh, that's nice. They're really excited to meet Sarah, but they've also got the Autism Dadcast going, and Casper Unicorn is joining them. And Casper can't wait to hear everyone's wishes. I'm going to have to look up who Casper is.
Sounds good. Is it, what is it called? What is the name of the event?
Country Fest.
Country Fest. And where is that going to be held? Is it in Shropshire?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they're really, really encouraging others to organise fundraising events of their own. It doesn't have to be something huge. A coffee morning, a raffle, a sponsored challenge. So I know they're talking about sponsored walks, and I know Rachel's done a little pack for people who want to set up little sponsorship bits, or just a local community event. It can all make the real difference. And if you're thinking about organising something, Rachel is more than happy to help where she can, whether that's helping you contacting businesses for raffle prizes, helping you seek sponsorship, helping you designing posters, or just like sharing ideas. Because together we're all stronger, and together we can say enough is enough. Together we can create better opportunities for children and families while standing up for what we believe is right. At Country Fest, they also have some incredible raffle prizes waiting to be won. And these are things that Rachel, just through organising this, has been able to secure. It includes a 2-night stay in an underground glamping burrow in the Lake District, which was a complete donation alongside many other fantastic prizes. So again, when you reach out, sometimes it might not be money, but if you get that fantastic prize, people will put their hands in their pockets for the raffle tickets. And again, that brings everything together.
Yeah.
And yeah, businesses near and far have really got behind Country Fest. So the generosity has been really incredible. They've donated raffle prizes. They've sponsored classes because they've got like the horse bits and the dog bits. They provided services. They're spreading the word. And obviously you can't do anything without support. They're really grateful to every single business that's chosen to stand alongside them. You can follow the page Country Fest, Individual Pathways,
Yes,
Shropshire.
do they have okay, I want to see if we can find the link to that.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Country Fest, run by Individual Pathways Shropshire. Invite all your friends and family and come along on the 23rd of August. Whether you're buying a raffle ticket, enjoying the dog show, taking part in the hobby horse competition, sponsoring, volunteering, or simply sharing, you make a difference. Every share, every raffle ticket bought, and every pound raised in their one, helps support the local families through the individual pathway Shropshire and contributes to ensuring these important legal questions can be answered by the court.
I will put the link in because this sounds like a great event. Shropshire's
does.
not too far from me, so maybe I'll also see if I can pop along. But I'll put that
So
link
Rachel,
in.
what's like thanking everyone for believing in them and what they're trying to achieve, and obviously they hope to see us at Country Fest. But as she said, Rachel is, and she's got a WhatsApp group with there's some other local organisers for other areas in the country who have started little things like little local fetes. And I know some people are looking at in a community hall together and things like that. So Rachel's happy for you to set up your own, and that model works fantastically. So they're doing a 50-50 split, half to help their local organisation do well, and then half to say, do you know what, we still need to support this legal challenge. And when they put the money in on the crowd justice bit in the comment, they would put, this was raised at Country Fest 2026. So then also everyone who goes to the crowdfunder page, they can see your organisation, so they know that as a group you're standing together. And that's important from several things. One, we need the coin, we need the money. So we need the money, we need the coin. Really important.
This is a
Two,
great
it
idea.
helps build up community. Three, it raises awareness so people get a positive side of your story, your organisation, but also raises awareness of this Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act and how it will impact their family, because they may be completely unaware. And on top of that, it lets the DfE and the government know, because if we've got all these organisations, a load of different organisations donating money, whether it be £10 from a lemonade stall by your child out the front, or it be £200 from a big raffle, if it keeps saying that this is from this place Shropshire, this place Peckham, this place Manchester, it makes the DfE go, hang on a second, it's not just people standing together now. The power of many is getting bigger and bigger. We've got individuals, now we've got groups, now we've got organisations, now they're getting support. Now, if they're getting support, they'll be able to then keep challenging us. And the ultimate bit is, we know the end game, we're going to need around 250,000, but we don't need that amount now, but we do need to get nearer that 50,000. So if we could have 10 country fests effectively throughout this summer. Sorry, Rachel, I know you told me it's like finding volunteers is the hard bit. But it should be amazing, and we should then start hitting those targets to actually be able to get this money together.
But the thing is that this is not the other thing is for the government, basically, if they see a lot of money being raised, they know that there are people who are committed to fighting. And if they know that people are ready to take them on with the pot of money behind it, that also sends a message into how far they can extend into this sort of privacy of our lives and into our rights. So I think it is really, really important that we demonstrate, not just with our words, but with our pockets, that we are committed to pushing back. I did see Michelle has asked on the comments, anything we could make to support the legal fundraiser now? That's a very big open question. You could make cakes.
No, but I don't. When you came to the last protest, the magical homemade tiaras and homemade sunglasses.
Oh, is that why she's asking? Because she's a 3D printing lady.
Teenage children. It's their family bits.
Oh.
So, do you know what? We could set up a sale bit. If you work out the costs of things, I've got a bit more time coming up. We could add a way of selling those, but work out the actual costs, because I know you got all the filament and stuff. And then we could maybe try and work out doing sort of like an online, almost like an online shop to support it. Obviously, we just need to make sure that you're not too in the red, because you've donated loads and loads of stuff so far. But I think we can definitely come up with something. And I think, if people have got ideas of what might be a really nice thing to be created, that sort of stands for this power of many, let's all join together, that would be amazing. And yes, Michelle, we will definitely talk and we'll sort something out.
Well, I've actually just had an idea, because I run the Learn Free conference every year, and this year we had an inspirational fridge magnet which says you can change the story. and I had some left over, and I have put them on the website for sale. I'm going to just share that here. So these are for sale for £4.50 for a magnet. That's what they look like over there. You can change the story. It's got the starfish on it. So I will commit to sending. Well, I do need some to keep the Learn Free bank account in the black, but anything I can split those profits, so that some of that goes to the legal challenge as well. So if you want to purchase one of those fridge magnets, it's on the website learnfree.org.uk, and those are available for sale for £4.50, including postage, by the way. So do go and have a look, and consider maybe buying those, because then I will share the proceeds with this legal challenge. But yeah, I can certainly see, I mean, with the 3D printing, Michelle, I think that's you guys. You know, there's so many amazing things people can make. And that might actually have something of a message, but maybe also be useful as well, that people will actually be interested in. So that's certainly opened up some ideas for me. I see Deborah's shared about Simon Squibb. I'm not quite sure what that video is about. I can't go and have a look right now, but I know we are also in touch with Simon as well. Some of us are in contact with him. So, you know, and I know that there's a chance he might help as well. But
which page is the Simon Squibb thing on, just so I can see if I can have a look?
Is under the, I think it might be on the Alliance page.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's on the Alliance page or the where that's been shared. Sorry, I'll try and find it for you.
That's fine, I'll find it.
Yeah. So but the thing is we can get really creative. As I said, you could think of doing car washing. You could maybe your children want to help the neighbors for a fee to do little odd jobs during the summer break. We suggested bake sales. You could have your whole homemade group get together and maybe sell hot dogs, or, you know, just get creative and think of what can you do, because when we come together, there's a slogan, the power of many. The power of many. You don't have to do this alone, and you don't need to feel like you're the only one who's responsible. Get your groups going, let them know what the plan is. If they're not sure what the legal challenge is about, they can watch this video as well to hopefully understand that a bit better. So right now we've got Jen Hodge waiting in the wings. Jen, is everything working there for you? Your camera and your audio? We've had issues with some people, so hopefully you'll be all right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Are we able to see you? Is the next
you
picture.
can. Yeah. There we go.
Are you decent?
I'm in bed, but
okay.
Hi,
Jen.
It's a quiet place to be.
Yeah, so Jen, thanks so much for joining us. You've been quite vocal throughout the time of this whole children's wellbeing in schools bill going through Parliament, and you've had a lot of things to say, and you are very painfully aware of how this act is going to affect families, because you're working with a lot of families as well, aren't you?
Yeah. So I see it from lots of different angles throughout the process. It's the angle from being a parent myself, of knowing lots of home ed families, and also from running a provision that provides educational services to home ed families. So there's kind of multiple angles.
Okay, so how do you see this playing out? If you know, with all the you know, so you know what the legal challenge is about. Yeah, so we know what the legal challenge is about. It's about, you know, protecting our human rights. I've always got to go and look at the exact wording every time, and then I've got to go and find my correct tab, so it's challenged the risk of reducing rights to family life, and we do see that this act is going to pose a risk to our family lives, our rights that we've enjoyed till now.
It's a really interesting time in kind of educational politics, I think. And considering this has been a bit of a bubbling pot that's been bubbling for quite some time, 20 years more, this ongoing, well, more than 20 years, but probably since the Education Act came out, there's been these discussions around home ed and what it means and what is an acceptable education, what is suitable, what isn't suitable, what's okay, what's not okay. And so we've kind of got to this boiling point now where the government's taken this quite strong move to say, okay, well, we're not going to go as far as banning it. We're not going to go as far as overly defining what education should look like. However, we're going to put some barriers in. We're going to really kind of send quite a clear message that we think school is best and that, home education should really be in the minority. And even if they haven't used those specific words, they've made it really clear with their actions. And so we've got to the point where this is now an act. And so therefore we can assume that it will be enacted. And in different stages and times. Obviously, it's not all, it didn't, the bell, I do still get messages from people saying, oh, can I do this? And can I do this still? Or what about this? And it takes time. It takes time for secondary legislation to be produced and guidance to be produced and training local authorities and all this stuff. But at the same time, we've got these legal challenges that are really going to get, hopefully, to the bottom of some of these really deep questions around who's responsible for the child, what's private life, what's acceptable, what's okay. And it's going to be, if it wasn't for the facts that involve children and us, it would be very interesting. I think it's a very interesting time to see how this is going to play out, and we'll probably send to see if we test this, what comes back as acceptable and not acceptable. And we've also got this playing out at a time that we're just about to get a new prime minister. We don't yet the full cabinet has not been announced. We don't know what's going to happen with education. We don't know. And we also are at a time where lots and lots and lots of people really don't like the Labour Party. And whilst we always have this with whoever's in power, everybody complains about them, but they've really naffed off a lot of people. There's a lot of people across all types of areas of society that are really peed off. And so we could go through this whole thing, and it is absolutely possible that another party will come into power before or around the same time that this is looking at the home ed stuff is looking at coming in and throw it out the window and do something completely different. It's absolutely possible that they could say, actually, they could be more heavy-handed and say, well, we want to put stuff through or use the powers of secondary legislation to make it more heavy-handed. They could go the other way. So it's a fascinating, interesting time, but not a time where we can rest on our laurels, and not a time where we can just be bystanders and view it. We have to make our thoughts and opinions known. We have to make our voices heard. We have to make it really clear that we're really not happy with this and it's not okay. And this goes beyond home education. This is about family rights. It's about parental autonomy. It's about who gets to make the decisions. And if parents don't get to have that ultimate right, then they've got to live with the consequences. And how's that going to roll out? So yeah, it's a big time.
Yeah, and this would impact you in your setting that you run, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and potentially, absolutely. So there's kind of, we don't provide full-time education, and it's likely that so they've introduced a new category outside of called independent education institutions, and we don't necessarily fit into that category because we don't provide full-time education, but they're also using quite woolly language around what full-time education could be, and using words like the majority of education, or it's all being left very loose in order for them to then play around, try different things in secondary legislation and see how many provisions they bring into scope. But as part of the Children Not in School register, if a family kind of says, oh, yeah, we're going to this tutor or this maths and English class or this forest school or this home ed group, and it's like again, it's not all been set in stone yet, but it's likely to probably involve something like I'm not attending with them, I'm dropping them off, or it might be I'm dropping them off and it is longer than an hour. I don't know, that's not confirmed yet. Suddenly the local authority then has the right to go to that provider and ask for information about any home educated child on their roll, going back 3 months, about whether what they've attended, how frequently, what they're doing, contact information. So providers will be in this incredibly awkward position where they will have set themselves up being very mindful of GDPR and privacy, and that's a culture that any organisation working with children should be embedded in. And suddenly they're being requested to provide quite sensitive information about families. And so in my case, I think the bonus is that I work with we support an awful lot of families who have come out of school. So they're already going to be known. We're not going to be kind of spilling the beans on families that have never registered, which would feel awfully awkward and unpleasant. However, it's still an invasion of privacy and it's still not my information to give. And so the fact that local authority can expect us to hand over information that's not our information to share, it's very unpleasant, unsavory to have to do. And it starts that it kind of brings home ed has always been this lovely, like, not grassrootsy, and although we are, like, my organization is very it's very strongly run, it's very well run, it's very proper, it's not woolly. We do things by the book. It still has always felt like an uprising and have grassroots at its roots, and underneath the shininess and the policies and all the things. And so I think for home ed to be kind of dragged into the, sharing private information, it just all feels very mechanical, very unnecessary. And absolutely, like, as the designated safeguarding lead, I regularly speak to professionals. I speak to all sorts of professionals, and where appropriate, I share information because that's to do with well-being and safety. And that's not always, that's the vast majority of times that's with parent consent. Because
well, I think the thing is that we all feel a bit like, particularly if your child was in school and the school failed your child, and they knew about your child and they failed your child, and now you're wanting to bring your child out of school and home educate them, and now suddenly, you're suspect, but they were the ones messing up. If they hadn't messed up, your child wouldn't have left, and it just doesn't sit right, because you're taking full responsibility for your child, which is actually what we really want to see. We want to see parents taking full responsibility for their children. And, the whole thing, I was going to raise this earlier with Randall and I forgot my thought, but people say, oh, yes, but don't worry, there's things like GDPR. Yeah, but they just changed the law on that.
Yes.
They just changed how. So there used to be things about information sharing where if it was sensitive, you didn't share. But, if a child was at risk of significant harm, you could share without consent. But they've changed that law. Now they can share information without consent simply to promote the well-being of the child. Now that can be as anything. They can make up anything. So people don't realize, like, even with the human rights, they want to change the Human Rights Act in the UK. Is that right, Michelle? They want to change the UK.
There keeps, well, each party seem to have their own view, but all the views seem to be about different ways of changing the Human Rights Act. Some are, we scrap it and we get a Bill of Rights instead. and some are we amend it this way or this way. But fundamentally, none of them are sort of like properly standing in front of it going, actually, if it's used properly, it works well. It's more like, oh, it's getting a bit inconvenient. So rather than look why it's getting inconvenient, let's just get rid of it.
Yes,
and,
and make it more the way we want it. Like, well, I'm saying not we, but the way politicians want it to for their convenience. So Michelle has just commented about, it used to be that the concern was about children who were truanting or children who were missing because something was wrong at home. They were spending all their time taking care of a parent and that kind of thing. That's what it used to be. But now they want to make out, just by not attending, or, we've got issues with the school fines, with parents being fined for keeping their children out of school, because first, possibly it's for a holiday, which I have no problem with as long as it's like reasonable, or sometimes even for a death in the family, where they don't want their child kept off school. So these parents are being fined, very heartless in some ways. And then you've got that side of things where parents are not trusted to be doing the right thing for their children. Then you've got where children are unwell, whether it's physically or mentally, and the parent wants to keep the child off school. That's seen as a problem. If parents are not trusted. And then with home education, well, we can't trust these parents to do as good a job as we do in school. Yeah. As good a job of what is another story, but it just seems very unjust, and I think we all feel very misunderstood. And I think it's time we made ourselves understood. And we're not going to stand for this. We've got many. Don't forget this power of many. I know Michelle is going to be using her power of many campaign all through the summer, because we are not little, we are not small. We might feel like we are, but there are more of us than you think. But we just need to make sure everyone knows. If people don't know, how can they do anything about it? So we need to make sure they know. So that is our job, to make sure we are informing people and getting the information out there. And Michelle in comments also said that her information keeps getting shared without her permission. And there are so many instances of this, where there are things that, where people have conversations about you, want to make decisions for you, and this needs to stop. So we need to put our money where our mouth is. And we are currently, I'm just going to share this again, the crowdfunder, because we're coming to the end of our time. So here's the crowdfunder. We went from, what was the amount when we started, Michelle? At
33,546. So we're exactly.
So we've raised
100
£100 today. I would have liked to have raised like 500, guys. Come on, really. It says 23 days to go, but I think that can be extended.
Yeah, it will just keep resetting as long as it's needed for the legal challenge. So
yeah,
same as the stretch target, it can go over that amount, because if people have been listening and you listened when Michael popped in, that it's really a £250,000 challenge. That's where we need to be at to be comfortable, to know that we can do what we need to do. So we're still a long way from that, but for now we need to try and get to that 50,000. If we get to 40,000, that keeps everything ticking as it needs to be.
So we do have a bit of time, but we do need to at least try and get to 40,000, I think, as soon as possible. But then we need to think a bit longer term. How do we keep the money coming in? Whether we donate ourselves, pledge to donate £10 a month or whatever, or do some fundraisers. Another idea that came to me is the not back to school picnics. Why don't you have a chat to your group and look at doing something at your not back to school picnic that will raise funds, whether you ask people to each donate £2 for coming along to the picnic, or whether you run a competition or anything like that. So let's be thinking creatively, and let's use our power, the power of many. Let's use it and come together and really put some punch into this campaign, really give it legs. So we are coming to our end of our time. Jade, I don't know if you want to pop in for the last few minutes, unless you're making yourself a cup of tea, which is okay if you're doing that.
No, I'm here. I've just got a bloody smoke alarm, so I keep it muted so it doesn't disturb my life.
Thank you to Jade for joining us, and I just also want to thank everyone else that joined us. We had Randall, we had Sarah, we had Michael Charles pop in, we've had Jen come in, we had Rachel share her ideas. And did I miss anybody else out? And of course, we've had Michelle sitting here with me today and co-hosting with me, which is fantastic because we had those horrible technical issues earlier, which like I've never had before.
And Sarah.
And Sarah, yes, thank you. Of course, well, of course, Sarah. This campaign would not be happening without Sarah. So big thank you to Sarah. I'm trying to make sure because I couldn't remember whose name I'd read out.
Michaela.
And yes, Michaela, and for your poem as well, Michaela. And let's really help spread each other's voices and share these things when we see them, when we see Michael Charles share something, when we see Michaela share something, when we see Jen share something, let's spread it and let's make sure we are linking to this crowdfunder and everything and reminding people. But thank you so much, those of you who've joined us today. It's been really good to do this. And yeah, just I'm thankful every day for all of you that really show up and support these events. But we need to get this crowdfunder properly on the road. And I just wanted to thank you for all doing that in advance. So that is our summer holiday homework. And I hope you will all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the sunshine while we have it. Let's not complain too much because I don't like the alternative. And thank you, Jen, for joining us just to share that bit as well at the end of the show. It's always good to have you on. And Michelle, thanks so much for your support and your help.
Well, thank you, Juliet, for bringing the energy and power behind these things. It's fantastic and very appreciated that you're still flying the flag and representing all of the home educators and all of the ones that want to do so. If you want to keep this right, if you want your kids to be able to home educate, you have to stand up and be counted now and donate a £5 and tell people because you've stopped your home education and you're still representing them. So we all need everybody to kind of stand up and back
that thing
what you're saying.
You say I'm like a piece of Brighton rock. You cut me in the middle, all you'll see home education going all the way through.
Long may that be the case, Julia.
Yeah. Anyway, and Michelle, do you have any last words?
No, just people keep donating and sharing.
Anyway, thank you guys. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a good afternoon and a good Sunday. Take care.